So we're here. We are finally to the end of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Hi, I'm Romania Black. So I donned these glasses today and decided that we need to talk about Neon Genesis Evangelion. Not for the final time. No, because as I'll talk at the end of this video, there are some things that I do eventually want to look at with Neon Genesis. I just feel like that now that we've looked at the anime, the rebuilds, and the manga proper, it is time, as we do with all things, to take a page from Anno's book and move on to the next thing. But that doesn't mean we can't still talk about this series. I really hope that in the Discord on the channel, we keep sharing fan art. We can share fan fiction now, so that nothing's spoiled there. We can share fan art, we can talk about theories, things that we like about the series, and we keep the conversation going, because this is one of those series that, against my better judgment, I feel like I'm going to be talking about as I react to other series, as I talk about theories, as I relate to characters. I feel like it's a series I'm going to go back to. And it's kind of the craziest thing, because this is not exactly, it's a series for everyone, and then it's not. So that's kind of crazy. So when I wanted to do this recap, I wanted to do kind of like an Attack on Titan style recap at the end, although we're not really doing an RIP. I'm not drinking today. And there's just, well, technically everyone died in the instrumentality, so but it is going to be kind of like the recap in that we are going to do tiers. We're going to talk about patron questions that were asked, and then also talking about just different themes and things that have stuck out. This is not going to be a 5-hour video, for the record. To be honest, it's kind of insane. I feel like at one point, I feel like I've exhausted myself of anything I could say about this series. And then on the other hand, I feel like I could talk about it forever. So I think I've talked more about this series than I have any other series I have reacted to on this channel. I think the only one that comes remotely close is Attack on Titan. And the only reason for that is that there's more episodes. There's only 26 episodes of this anime and 4 movies. And maybe, I guess, 5 if you count the recap movie, and then some manga. But other than that, I feel like I'll eventually talk more through Attack on Titan than I will this series. But per capita, I've talked more about this series than I think anything else I've ever watched or read, which is kind of insane. Now, I guess you could look at some of the MXTX, the Donmai works, like Heaven Official's Blessing, but that's like an 8-volume series. There's a lot to talk about there. But as far as anime goes, bar none, with the exception of maybe Attack on Titan, this is the most I've talked about a series, and that's not a bad thing. So I want to go through just kind of and talk about just an overview of the series and my experience with it, and then patron questions that have come out. There's been a lot of tiers that have been requested that we're going to go into, and just kind of have fun and talk about that with this, because I feel like this is just going to be a celebration video of the things that I really enjoyed about Neon Genesis Evangelion, because this series has definitely changed the way that I look not only at anime and manga and narratives, but kind of it makes you think about life itself and how you interact with people and things like that. So it's definitely a life-changing series that is so fascinating. And it's not what I expected when I started out this series. My brother has liked Neon Genesis for a long time, but I think that my brother views Neon Genesis, I feel, more through like a rose-colored nostalgia lens, because he saw it when we were kids. Now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, he saw this when we were kids. I was like, wait a minute, what? And so now that I think back on it, I'm like, wait a minute, you saw this when we were kids? Did things go over your head? I feel like they went over your head, but I've not asked him about that at this point. But I feel like, starting out this series, I thought it was just going to be a mech anime. I thought it was going to be like a 90s mech anime, like Power Rangers or Voltron or something, or Gundam or something like that. And I did not know I was getting into a David Lynchian style thriller-esque horror that I was with this series. I had no clue. I was an innocent summer child that walked in going, well, this will be about robots and be fun. And you end the series screaming internally until the end of time. So that's where we are with this. But yeah, did not anticipate the horrific psychological, sexual elements of this series, especially for something that I thought going into this was marketed towards a, like a shonen audience, like a teenage audience, but it's really not. It's really marketed for a much older audience, which is fun. I like that. as an adult, I feel like I felt more connected with this show than I definitely think I would have if I had been younger watching it. I feel like with this series and several others that I've started on this channel, because of patrons and you all on YouTube and everything suggesting them, I feel like I've started watching these series at the perfect age for them, because there are so many mature themes that as a teenager I think would have just brushed over my head, would not have gotten them, would not have understood them or been able to connect them, or especially with the characters, because a lot of the characters in this series are older. So I would definitely not have been able to relate to those characters or their struggles had I watched this when I was younger. So I will say, for the record, those of you that watched this when you were like 10 years old, hope y'all are all right. Hope y'all are still doing good. I'm sure you are fine. You know what? It's funny. We talk about kids and the media they watch. I'm like, I watched some dark shit when I was a kid and I turned out fine. So I think kids these days can handle it. We don't give them enough credit, right? And that's kind of the big theme of the show, is giving the children credit, because in a lot of senses, the children can be more mature and have a better handle and grip on life than adults do. And that's kind of a genuine theme of the series. So I put up here on Whiteboard Coon the anime, the manga, and the rebuilds. And I did want to eventually break them down at some point and kind of talk about the pros and cons, which ones I liked better. Spoiler alert, these are the order that I like them in. It goes anime, manga, and then the rebuilds. But again, as I've talked to people in the comments, it's apples, oranges, and lemons. You can sort them out any way you like to. It's like caramel, chocolate, and peanut butter. You can just switch them around, whichever you're feeling like that day. And I think, which is rare for a series, to have so many different mediums to view it in, and they all be good in their own ways, and they all find a fan base. I think that's pretty impressive. So yeah, I want to talk out and pick out the great things about each medium. This series, I feel you kind of get like an imposter syndrome a little bit from this series, because I feel in some regards that it's weird me talking about it, because I've experienced this series for 3/4 of a year, for like 8 or 9 months. I've been watching this series week to week and talking about it. But there are some of you watching this video that have followed this series for 30 years. So I feel like you watching this rando talk about this series and be like, wow, she just, started out watching this series. We've been at it for decades. There is kind of an imposter syndrome about it. So I'm glad you all are here listening to me speak about this series and why I love it, because I definitely agree that it is one of my favorite series. It's one of my favorite series. It's in my top 10, and I do think it's one that I'm going to be referencing with a lot of anime that I watch from here on in. And now, since watching this series, I've noticed like tropes, I've noticed imagery. Now that we know all the series and studios that have been involved in the making of this series, you start to see them like take design elements. And it's funny, we'll talk about the series that's going to replace this one and just about that in general. But it's funny because now it's like, okay, Neon Genesis has inspired and it has influenced so much in the anime industry and the film industry as well, that it's baffling that I didn't realize it before. And now that you've seen it, you're kind of like, oh, it's kind of like when you watch Citizen Kane for the first time and you think, wow, technically this is an amazing film. And then you start to see the references that other series bring in from Citizen Kane. You're like, oh, that's what this is. It's like that, like a Tarantino film like this. There's so much that you find out once you watch the source material that now you can relate to other things. So it's exciting to be able to see this classic going into these other series and kind of relate back to them. That's going to be the fun part, right? And the fact that it has so much media surrounding it, so many spin-offs, so many, Nuclear Gandhi said in the Discord channel, there was like a hip-hop album based off it. I'm like, what has Neon Genesis not inspired at this point, right? And eventually down the road, when I get the hankering to have some Neon Genesis in my life again, I feel like I'm going to want to go back and check those out and be like, I want to see that hip-hop album. See what this jazz is about. But for now, after this video, we are going to take a page from Anno and move on to the next thing. For now. I hate to say it's totally over, because especially I'm a very completionist type person and I like to like finish things in their entirety. And so it's like there's a part of me that's like I could spend the next 3 years delving into more Neon Genesis things, but I also realize that you all would like me to watch other things as well. So it's just going to be something that I feel will come back in waves as I go through this series. But yeah, so oddly enough, I want to talk to the Patreon questions first and dive into those, because I put a thing out on Patreon asking fellow patrons to ask questions about the series, and y'all came through in spades with lots of questions that I feel like I love answering questions like this. So it's a lot of fun to dive into those and think about them. But Cyber Joker WTF, great moniker, did have the big question of, do you recommend this series? Yes, is the short answer. But there's like an asterisk or two beside it, right? There's definitely an asterisk beside it. Because here's the thing. The funny thing about this series, for me, is that it is definitely, when people told me it was a classic, they're like, you need to see Neon Genesis Evangelion because it's a classic anime, it's a staple, it is such an influence with everything else that goes on in anime, you just need to see it. It's kind of like Akira. It's kind of like the movie Akira. If you know anything about anime, you need to see Akira. Whether you like it or not, it's one of those things you just need to see to understand the zeitgeist and the culture and the community surrounding anime and manga. I feel like Neon Genesis is similar to that, but it's not for everyone. It's weird. I feel like the messages that it brings are universal. The messages, the characters, they're all definitely universal characters and themes that I think are applicable to any walk of life, any culture, any audience. However, the style of it, it makes it not for everyone. And that's kind of like, as an English teacher, we talk about the 7 elements of literature, and you have to have plot and characters and a setting. Those 3 things are functional and key. You have to have a plot. You have to have characters, setting, a plot. You need a point of view. Those things are all pretty universal, right? And then you have symbolism, which symbolism can be as in-depth and surface level as you want it. And then from there on, you have to have a theme, and the themes can be as surface level or as in-depth as you want them. And then the final element is style. And style is usually a make or break for people. That's usually the one that gets, like, you can have an amazing plot, amazing characters, a beautiful setting. You can have like transcendental themes. Like, you can have all these amazing high quality elements, but the style is what gets people. It's what attracts you to certain things and detracts you from certain things. It's like when you pick a book, it's the judging the book by its cover part of literature and part of anime and manga. And I will say that I could see this series, it's not for everyone. I could see some people watching this and the abstract elements, especially for the anime, the abstract elements being like, especially when you get to episodes 25 and 26. 25 and 26 is my jam. Episodes 24 through 26, I'm like, raise the roof, here for it. But I feel like those are the episodes that people will be like, wait a minute, no what? And then they'll kind of turn on it. I feel like this series runs the gambit of, the funny thing about Neon Genesis, if you've never watched this series before, if you haven't, you probably shouldn't watch this video because there's going to be a lot of spoilers. But I feel like if you start watching out this series, it starts kind of stereotypical shonen mech anime, and it lulls you into this false sense of security where you're like, okay, I'm going to watch this. This is going on pretty good. Okay. And around the time you hit episodes 11 and 12, you're like, well, this is getting a little bit abstract, a little surreal, but it's still okay. And by the time you hit episode 18, episodes 17 and 18 is like the no turning back point. If you get to Toji and that whole deal with the 12th angel, if you get to that point and you're like, nope, that's when you turn around. It's like the whole episode 17 and 18 are your last chance to turn around before this spirals into Crazy Town and we go to a deep dive into surreal psychological abstractness. And then from there, if you've stuck around, it's a treat, but if that's your type of thing. So I do recommend this series, but I have a big asterisk of saying you need to go into it with a very, very open mind and don't think you're getting what you get in the first episode. If you judge the whole series based on the first 2 episodes, you will be sorely disappointed because it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. And I loved that about it. I love when a series surprises me like that and I think I know what's going to happen and the series goes, no, you don't. And it's done in a very, very good way. And I think Neon Genesis excels in that. But I could instantly see, like, my dad would love this series because he's a sci-fi guy. Like, we watch Star Trek together, we watch Star Wars, and it has kind of the same thematic sort of things. It relates more to Star Trek than Star Wars, I think. But it kind of, he likes that more psychological sci-fi stuff. My mom would hate this series with an aplomb. She would just be like, this is dumb, and would want to instantly get away from it. But it's just not her style. Not her style at all. I've seen her watch stuff that I'd be like, well, the themes are kind of similar, but it's packaged in a very different way, right? So I do definitely recommend this series, but only if you know what you're getting into and you go at it with a completely open mind. And I think you have to go into it with an open mind. If you go into this thinking that you know what it's about, and that's something too that has kind of come up throughout this whole series and that we've talked about in the Discord, is that the fandom is kind of, in some part, you have Death of the Author, and the fandom's kind of swooped in and taken parts of the story, and they say things are canon when they're really not. That's probably the craziest thing, is going through the comments in this series as I've read and watched this series, is the comments some people would say. They'd be like, well, actually it's this. And then somebody would reply and say, nuh-uh, that's not proven, and would get into this. And then finally I'd get on Discord and be like, what is this about? And they'd be like, oh, listen. I have been blessed by having an amazing Discord channel with Neon Genesis fans that are very open-minded and very resourceful, and have been like, okay, Romania, this is not, here's the rest of the story, and would give me like actual logical evidence. And I'm like, thank you, that's all I needed. That's all I needed, is some smart intellectual people that know this series and can help me differentiate between what's a fan theory and what's canon. So that's been a lot of fun, but because there's so much to this series, and there's so much to the zeitgeist, and so much to Anno's interviews and everything, that you could just fall into a rabbit hole so easily with it. But it's still so good, right? So thank you, CyberWTF. I do recommend this series, but you've got to have an open mind. And I would say, don't quit it. I would say stay with it the whole way and let it just wash over. And maybe when we get to this part here of comparing, hopefully if you're on the fence of what type of things to view, I would say this is kind of a nice go-to of, they all three come at different angles. So if you're not sure what to do with the series, I would say they all have their pros and cons, but we'll talk about that later on. So Nicholas NB had a couple questions that were really, really good. Their first question: what is the most shocking revelation, plot or character-wise, to you, and why? There was a lot. There was a lot of shocking plot revelations and character revelations. So it was kind of hard to narrow down. I originally had a big long list, and I'm like, I'm going to narrow down because another patron question kind of ties into this similarly. But for me, Kaoru coming out of nowhere. Episode 24 was just like, what? just like the best surprise and revelation was that the final angel being Kaoru, and just being, and somebody in the comments way back had hinted at Kaoru's name, and I remember somebody in the YouTube comments had been like, don't spoil her, don't mention Kaoru. And I remember it was like way back in episode 3 or something, and that was it was just a mention of a character name, and I didn't think much about it because I had no clue who Kaoru was. It was just like, the comment was, wait till you see Kaoru or something like that, and then the YouTube commenters were like, stop spoiling her. And so I stopped reading. But I had no clue what Kaoru was, if it was an angel, if it was a person, if it was a man, woman, whatever, no idea. And so episode 24 just came out of nowhere, slapped me in the face and said, okay, bye, into the series time. And you're like, wait, what? And so that was probably the most surprising, was just the whole episode 24 and what it encompassed in 20 something minutes was probably the biggest revelation twist with all of that. Also, I would say, in relation to that, one of the biggest revelations was the stuff with Toji. Because when episode 17 happens, you know that it's Toji. You know he's the fourth child. You're like, okay, he's going to be the fourth child. But I didn't think he was going to die in the manga for sure. And I didn't think he was going to, suffer at the hands of Shinji. You go into these series with, the background of watching some shonen, and in some shonen you think, okay, well, Toji's in this big situation. Shinji's going to get him out of it. The power of Nakama is going to come through, and he's going to save Toji and stop the angel. I fully, throughout episode 18, thought that Shinji was going to find a way to stop the EVA unit. I was like, oh, well, he's going to stop the EVA unit. It's fine. He's going to find a way to stop it and rescue Toji. It's okay. And then Gendo activates a dummy system, and you're like, no, he's not going to save Toji. at all. And the worst part is that he had to watch what happened to Toji. I mean, the rebuilds hide it where you can't really see, but in the anime, he sees everything, and it's like, huh. So that part was insane to me, that he not only didn't save his friend, but had to watch and be responsible in part for his demise. Crazy stuff. And that was kind of, those were probably the two biggest surprises. I'd say the bronze medal of surprises was really Ritsuko and her relationship with Gendo and her mom's relationship with Gendo, and Gendo being so complicit with it. Because even throughout, once you figure out that Gendo's doing everything for Yui, there's still like this moment of surprise where you're like, he is totally fine with having sex with Ritsuko and her mom, even though he loves Yui. Like, it's all to manipulate these women to get them to help him reach his goal of getting back to his wife. And I'm like, wait, what? It's the manga and the anime just twisting Gendo's role throughout this series and all the surprises with it. So the surprise of Ritsuko and her mom having this affair with Gendo and him being totally complicit in it because he's just using them. And then the manga twisting the Gendo narrative to where he saves Shinji instead of Masato. That was probably one of the biggest surprises in the manga. And it's such a little surprise, but I was just like, wait, no! Gendo saved Shinji? And then he has that whole help your dad out by destroying the world sort of thing that it just completely blindsided me. I didn't see it coming, right? And just, the manga itself was a big revelation. The things that Sadamoto changed. Because I figured there'd be like little plot changes that Sadamoto would do. I didn't think it'd be like whole character changes. Like Kaoru and Shinji's relationship, Gendo saving Shinji, Rei's changes, the stuff with Asuka and Shinji. Like all those little changes the manga did were really interesting. And I didn't see them coming. So those are probably the biggest revelations. But this series was just like, one plot twist after another, and even down to like little minute things that you didn't expect. And we'll talk about that in one of the other patrons' comments here in a little bit. But yeah, just those were the big revelations. But this whole series was just episode after episode of expecting something to happen, and then even if it did, something subverting that expectation. You're like, what? Just those are the kind of series I love, when you go in thinking something's gonna happen and the series says, well, maybe, but also no. And so those are the fun ones. I love to watch those and to have myself surprised. Because I'm not like one of those reactors that likes to be like, I was right. Look how smart I am. I am not that way at all. I would rather go in being like, here's my theory. I'm totally right. And then in the episode being like, guess who is wrong? And I like slowly put my clown makeup on and my red nose. That's the type of reactor I am. I want to be proven wrong. I want the show to completely defy expectations in a good way. Now, if it does it in a bad way, you're kind of like, but Neon Genesis has never had that moment for me. It's never had the moment where it did something and I went, oh. It never has had that. It's always been a surprise or expectation that has lifted the material beyond my expectation. And so I think that's high praise to me, is to say a series can do something like that and go beyond your expectations in a positive way. So yeah. Nicholas's next question was, which character do you identify or feel the most connection with? And again, there's lots of ways you can go about this answer. What's interesting is, I feel like one thing about Neon Genesis is that I think a lot of characters we can connect with in little ways, but to me, there's not one character that I solely related to. I think that a lot of the characters in this series are broken, they are flawed in very severe ways, and as Ritsuko says, they're not adept at living. And so there's a lot of characters in this series that I felt I couldn't relate to. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. But I kind of liked that because it gave you a group of characters that you normally would not connect with. And you kind of spent the whole series finding ways to connect with them, which again ties to the theme of the series about communication and connection despite all odds. So I do think there are 4 characters, though, that I related to in different ways that you normally wouldn't. One, the character I think I relate to the most is Shinji. In the weirdest of ways, because and it's only in terms of little things. Like, I can relate to Shinji in terms of feeling lost, having imposter syndrome, Shinji doesn't feel like and that kind of connects to Asuka too. Asuka and Shinji and the idea of, and Asuka's not one of my 4, so I'm going to kind of lump her in as a honorable mention here. But the imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're not worthy of something, like you don't deserve to be here, and things like that. And I would say, honestly, as a content creator, I get that a lot. I feel that a lot. I see a lot of reactors that have giant fan bases and do all these things, and I'm like, I shouldn't be here on the internet with you all. That doesn't seem right. And you can argue and say, oh, no, that's not true. But it hits you, right? That I do think it hits sometimes. And especially like competing in any event, like I think all of us at some point can feel that imposter syndrome kind of creep in. And with Shinji and Asuka, by proxy, it's kind of very relatable, but feeling lost and not knowing what to do, feeling like indifferent or apathetic sometimes. I don't feel that a lot, but I do sometimes, and so Shinji is relatable. But with Shinji, I think my big connection with him was trying to reconcile with parents, because I haven't always had the best relationship with my parents. And so I feel like with Shinji, I liked the story of him and Gendo, and by the end of the series, them, especially by the end of the rebuilds, them reconnecting. And through the manga, him finding a connection with his parents. That theme I related to quite a bit. And I like that with Shinji. So there was that. Honorable mentions to Asuka, but Shinji, there was definitely, he was relatable in terms of those themes. In terms of reconciling with the themes of love, as well as not feeling worthy of love. Masato. I could relate a lot to her and her struggle with Kaji in that relationship, and her feeling like she didn't deserve to be, and in the manga it's with Kaji where he talks about them not deserving to be happy, but with her it's like, not feeling worthy of love sometimes. I feel like if you've been in a relationship and it's not gone well, you kind of think, well, it's probably me and stuff to do with me, and I feel like I could relate with Masato in terms of that. And then in terms of jealousy with love, it's Fuyu-chan, because Fuyu-chan, you find out he loved Yui, and in the manga especially, they talk about how he kind of spited Gendo because of it, and he hated Gendo because she didn't love him back. She loved Gendo instead. And so again, if you've ever liked somebody and did not, and it was unrequited, I feel like Fuyu-chan is that representation of the unrequited love, and it's like, ugh, and all of the disgusting feelings that go with it. So I could relate to Fuyu-chan in terms of that. But other than Shinji, I think the person I related most with was Ritsuko. Which is odd, right? Because Ritsuko is kind of like not one of the main trio characters, but the idea of separating our identity, separating your identity into the work self that you have, the romantic self that you have, your personal life, your private life, like the idea of segmenting yourself into different identities, even as, a teacher, as a content creator, as yourself. That whole idea definitely was something I could relate to with her character, and her struggling to really reconcile with which side of her was the most true. She's saying like she didn't want to be a mother and she loved being a scientist, but she also resented the fact she was a woman. So I feel like with Ritsuko, her complications and layers to her character, I could really relate to, especially as an adult. I think that Ritsuko, I think as a kid, I would relate most to Shinji, and as an adult, I relate most to Ritsuko. So I find that interesting. Now, am I going to have an affair with like a 58-year-old man who's like trying to get back with his dead wife? No. But there is that kind of like identity segregation crisis that Ritsuko goes through throughout the series that I found I could connect with the most. So yeah. And then Nicholas's other question was, should Jet alone get his own and slightly lame Monster of the Week series? It would not be lame. No! I actually thought about this a lot after you asked this question, and some other people commented on Patreon about Jet Alone having their own series. No! You know what? Jet Alone could have been the Neon Genesis series that I thought we were getting going into this. I thought going into this, it was going to be kind of like a Jet Alone Villain of the Week series, where the Evas would fight a monster every week, and there'd be some overarching plot about the angels and something to do with the end, and it would all kind of lead to a climax at the end of the series, but then Nakama would win the day and all this, which is not what happens. But I was thinking about this too. I'm like, it would not be lame. You could have like a side series where the Nerve characters, kind of like in the episode with Jet Alone, they try to like break in and do their detective work, and they try to like weed through the corruption. And my idea was that it would be like an alternate universe where you'd find out that the 108 Murdoch corporations, each corporation actually does exist. They're not fake. They do exist, and they each have their own, like, angel-like monster that Jet Alone has to fight each week. And then while Jet Alone is fighting the monster of the week, you have characters like Ritsuko and Masato and Kaji infiltrating into the corrupt corporations to find out what's going on and take down the people running them. And then with each episode, they slowly start to piece together the Murdoch Corporation's connections to Nerve and to Seal, and that's the series. And by the end of it, they find out about Lilith and Adam, and we connect to Neon Genesis. That's my standalone side series that I think could work. I think that we could just do that. We'll just have Jet Alone fighting the monster angel of the week, while Kaji, Masato, Ritsuko, maybe Asuka, maybe, Maya, maybe Hyuga, maybe they all make an appearance, to help out, infiltrate the Murdoch corporations and connect back to the true nature of the events that are happening with Seal and with Nerve. That's my pitch. But I think it would not be lame. Jet Alone was such a fun episode, and now I'm like, damn it, we only got him for one episode? How dare they? How dare they take such a fun concept and just be like, nah, and just throw it to the side? I don't know, what we doing? But yeah, so thank you, Nicholas, for those questions. Melania the Severed had some really good questions. One was asking about a ship tier list, which we will do down below. I tried to look up some ships actually from the show. The AA Wonder is obviously the best ship. Obviously, it's the winner. It's the S tier on there from the rebuilds. Best ship, of course. Although the ship that Asuka throws at the Angels is definitely an S tier as well. But yeah, no, we'll do a ship tier down below, so no worries there. But which of Evangelion's themes did you find most interesting, is what Melania the Severed asks. And there's a lot of themes that this series goes with, and we've talked about them at length throughout all of the End of Evangelion reviews, all the episode reviews, and etc. But I had my top 4 themes that I liked the most out of the series. One, the psychosexual development theory that we did for the latter part of the anime. That was probably the most fun that I've had researching with an episode in a long time. That was a lot of fun. I loved breaking down the psychosexual development theory and connecting it to those last set of episodes and seeing like, okay, in this episode, we're going to cover this branch. In this episode, it's going to be this stage. In this episode, it's going to be this stage. And the fact that the manga chapters are called stages. That part was so much fun to break down. And for the most part, it was pretty accurate. I was like, that's kind of cool that it all kind of worked out. Even into the rebuilds in the manga where Gendo kind of resents Shinji, and that ties to that whole like genital stage and all that. It was a lot of fun, and whoever suggested the psychosexual development stages, y'all deserve a big pat on the back, because that was the most fun I've had researching for a series in a while, and I'm very thankful that you brought that up. So I liked that. But as far as themes in the series, the second one was just the idea of hands and communication and how we reach out to others. In the manga, the big thread is about hands and Rei and Shinji, shaking hands and what that feels like, and how you go from how like the idea of touch, and it goes from becoming an acquaintance with someone to becoming familiar with someone to becoming romantic with someone to becoming in a relationship or friends or family with someone. Like the idea of that, with Gendo resenting his hands. I know someone said in the comments it was because they were probably scarred, and it's like, yeah, that's on the surface, the physical aspect, but also we established that Gendo's inadept at living. He doesn't like communicating with others. He hates people. So the idea of hands being that connection to others is something he doesn't like. There's that. And then just the idea of using touch as a sensory that is so prevalent throughout this series is really, really interesting, because it's something that we get the use of hands in other series. I'm not saying it's like the first anime to ever do it or the last. It's been used several times since then, but it's such a key role in the series, the idea of hands and the idea of communication, that we don't talk to one another. And if we just talked more, we could solve a lot more problems than just trying to keep quiet and bury our emotions. Remember, kids, don't bury your emotions deep down or you'll become like Gendo and like try to destroy the world to get back at this one person rather than going to a therapist and talking about it, Don't do that. But I like that theme a lot. And then the whole thing about the AT fields that we have. I love the mechanism, the AT field. It was talked about since the very beginning of the series, and it was set up as something that only angels have. And then by the end of the series, we figure out that all humans are angels as well. And we all have our own AT fields. And it's just a symbolic representation of the literal barrier we put up between ourselves and others. It's whenever you see somebody and you're like, oh, you're in my space, you're in my bubble, that's the AT field. It's that you keep people distant from you and you keep separated from others, for whatever reason. And it's the idea that like when we break that barrier down and connect with someone, it either becomes euphoria or it ends in our own destruction. And that's such a cool, I love that theme because it's so neat. It's like, you could look at it from like a sexual standpoint of being like when you're in a relationship with someone, like they say once you have sex, it changes things in the relationship. And like, what does that do? And that's when those AT fields come down and what does it lead to? And this series kind of explores that. But then there's also like the non-sexual side of it, that once you break down that wall and let people in to your trust, to your friendship, to your family, there's a chance they're going to betray you, or there's a chance you're going to end up heartbroken. And it's a gamble that you take. Even if things work out and they never do anything to betray your trust, eventually they may die or not be there anymore. And then you're still going to experience heartbreak. And it's like you let them in. And it's like the whole, is it better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all? That's kind of the whole debate with the AT fields. So, and I like it's something that the monsters of the series had that the humans all end up having as well. And it's like, we're not so different, in the end. I love that theme. I think the AT field is one of the cooler mechanisms of the show and one of the more thematic ones that when you go back and rewatch or relook at it, you're like, oh yeah, that is so neat. It's neat how they use that in the story and kind of connect everything together through it. And then finally, like the whole thing with Anno trying the entire series to make the argument that y'all need to leave the fandom and go out and talk to people. Go out and see people. And it's funny because I feel like it's such a timely message for now because, COVID and shelter in place and everything has it's conditioned us to be wary of going out and interacting with others because of our health and because of our safety, but it's something that we still need to do. And so I find that so fascinating that this was a theme that Anno talked about 30 years ago, and it's still so applicable even now. Like that's so fascinating to me. I really liked that. And the end of Evangelion where he switches over to live action and it shows people like leaving the theater and it's like, yeah. And that even connects to the rebuilds. You have the end of Evangelion and then you have the rebuilds where they like go off and start a new story and it's like, okay, now we don't know what's going to happen to him, but go off and find a new story. That's the thing, because it's so tempting to want to stay in Neon Genesis Evangelion world. I've been tempted of it. I've been like, well, I could go ahead and do this and drag this out a little bit longer. But I was like, no, I need to start something new. I need to put this on the shelf for now and move on. And it's been hard to rationalize because I'm not going to lie. I've not wanted to end. I've been dreading this video for a long time because I've not wanted to end of Evangelion. I've not wanted to end Neon Genesis Evangelion for a while. And we're not really ending it. I hate to say ending it because it feels like when you say you're going to end something, it feels like you'll never talk about it ever again. No, I feel like I'm going to come back to this series at some point, and I'm still going to talk with people in the comments and on the Discord about it. But it is, whenever I wrap up a series, I do feel very bittersweet and melancholy because I'm like, oh, it's the end of the series and I have to move on now. Especially when it's a series I really like. So, but thank you, Melania. Those questions were really, really good. JLP had a really cool question. And I think this is a really interesting question to ask. And several people have asked about it too. But JLP asked, thoughts on swapping genders in EVA? How would the show change and the audience reaction be different if Shinji was a shy, frightened girl and Asuka was a hot-blooded young man? That's a fascinating question. And I'm going to be honest. I started to list out details of how they'd be different. So I started with Asuka first because Asuka seems the most easy to answer about. Asuka would not be too different from a typical shonen protagonist, attitude-wise. Asuka, we already joked, was the shonen protagonist. She just had boobs. So I do think there wouldn't be as much fan service with her, if I'm being honest. That's all I'll say about that. But yeah, that's how I think it'd be different. There wouldn't be enough fan service with her if she was a guy in the series. But I do think that she'd still be the same character even as a male. The parental background with her mom, I thought that it would be interesting if they did a gender swap. I'm like, would they just gender swap Asuka and keep the parental twisted backstory the same with the mother figure? Because that would be kind of interesting. It'd be like Shinji and their mom with Asuka and their mom. There'd be some kind of interesting duality there. Or would they gender swap all the characters in the series and it would be Asuka's dad that they had a twisted backstory with instead of the mom? And if it was the dad, it wouldn't be that different than Gendo, honestly. I mean, there'd be definite differences, but it would still be like that same, abandonment from their parents would not be that different from Shinji and Gendo, which could be rather interesting. Now, how would a gender swapped Asuka do with a feminine Kaji or with a male Kaji if we didn't gender swap Kaji? That would be interesting, seeing like male Asuka drop their pants in front of feminine Kaji, and feminine Kaji's like, no. Now I need feminine Kaji just being like, no. But we'll talk about that whole thing then, because with Shinji, if Shinji were a girl, that's interesting to consider. It would be curious to see how the audience would take Shinji being pressured as a woman, or how the twist would work, like with Shinji landing on Rei in the apartment. If Rei was a man and Shinji was a girl landing on him, how would that play out? How would Shinji and Kaoru, if they were both women, be portrayed? How would that go about? But here's the cool thing. We can what if the gender swap theories all day, but something that kind of makes it all kind of superfluous is that with Neon Genesis, there's already a ton of gender role subversions. So when I was thinking out the answer to this question, JLP, I was like, the gender swap kind of seems like it wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because I feel like Shinji defies so much gender expectations of a male character already. Making him a female wouldn't change much. It would maybe change, I think, the audience's reaction to certain scenes based on their culture. It would depend on the audience and their culture, how they'd react to certain scenes, but I don't think it would impact the story too much. Same with Asuka. I don't think changing her gender would impact too much. Now, the big question would be, in End of Evangelion, if Shinji is a woman and Asuka's a man, how that opening scene in the hospital room would go. That would be the big difference. That would be one that would be like, how are we doing that? How are we visually doing that? But otherwise, I think that some of the sexual elements would be the most interesting to see swapped, just from a biological, practical, visual standpoint. But I think as far as the characters go, there wouldn't be that much difference. It would just be like, how would you narratively do this? So yeah, that's a really good question. But what I like is that I don't think in Neon Genesis it would overarchingly affect the plot too much. And I don't know how people's reactions would be. I think their interactions, it would depend on if all the characters were gender swapped or if it was just Asuka and Shinji. If it was all of them, that could be interesting. But if it was just Asuka and Shinji, I don't think that there'd be too crazy a difference, right? Now I'm just imagining like a male Asuka like trying to hit on male Kaji, and male Kaji's like, no. Just no. Asuka like drops his pants like, don't you want this, Kaji? And he's like, absolutely not. But then you have, if none of the other genders change, you have a female Shinji with male Kaoru, and that could be interesting too. I don't know. Again, I feel like Neon Genesis makes it to where it almost doesn't matter, but it would still be rather interesting. You'd have to map that whole series out, right? I don't know. What if Gendo was a woman and Yui was the dad? What if Yui was the scientist dad that sacrificed himself and Gendo? I feel like that would be interesting, because I think people would try to like make Gendo an evil stepmother or something, or give like the evil stepmom vibes to Gendo if they were like Genda, be like a woman. And then, you'd have Fuya-chan, where she's like the bridge commander, and they both like had a crush on Yui when he was a young man. That part could get kind of stereotypical, because I feel like the gender roles Fuyu and Gendo have such a traditional masculine presence, like a traditional cultural masculine presence, that they don't really subvert gender expectations. So I feel like if you gender swap them, those would not subvert gender expectations either. But Shinji and Asuka do. So that's an interesting question. I'm curious in the comments what you all would think about that. But that's a very interesting question. Yeah, because even Kaji and Masato, they kind of subvert gender expectations as well. So if you gender swap them, I don't think it'd be that different, because it would just be like, then it would just be like what you stereotypically would think those characters would do, right? You'd have Masato as a guy chugging a beer, and then you have Kaji as the femme fatale. That wouldn't really subvert anything. But the fact that Neon Genesis made their roles kind of swap makes it interesting, right? Curious. That's a really good question, JLP. I have a lot of fun thinking about that. And then Alex Cornejo was our last patron commenter, but they had quite a bit. They wanted a parent tier list, which we will do. And then, is there stuff that you expected to happen? They asked if there was stuff that I expected to happen that didn't, and if there was stuff I didn't expect to happen that did. And I was like, okay. So I would say that the stuff that I expected to happen but didn't, I just made a short list of each category, because I was like, I feel like we could be here all day. But as far as stuff I expected to happen but that did not, there's like a top, how many did I put on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 on here. So there's top 11 things I didn't expect. One would be, I fully thought going into this series with it being like, I thought of it as a shonen when I went in. So I was like, okay. And based on the only image I'd ever seen of Neon Genesis was the cover with Asuka and the O2 unit. That's the only Neon Genesis image I ever saw. And so I went in with the expectation that, one, Asuka was the main character. That's what I went in thinking. I thought Asuka was the main girl. We were going to follow her around. Like, even from episode 1, I was like, okay, we've met Shinji. Well, Shinji's going to meet Asuka in episode 2, and then he's going to follow her around. It was going to be a misdirect, and she was the main character all along. That's what Asuka wishes was the case. That's what Asuka wishes were the case. But yeah, I thought that. I thought Asuka was going to be our main character, and Shinji and Rei were going to be like her backup, and that was going to be just how the series ran. Not at all. Shinji was the main character. I also thought that Shinji and Asuka, or at least Shinji and someone, would become an explicitly canon ship by the end of the series. And much to, I'm sure, Anno's chagrin, he doesn't give us an explicit ship. And I know you all will argue in the comments till the end. I know I've just triggered every fan shipping couple ever. But there really isn't. There is not a definitive ship with Shinji by the end. You could ship him with like a harem of different people, and you could argue every single one of them to the ends of the earth, and you wouldn't be wrong, right? And you wouldn't be wrong. So it just really becomes a pick your poison sort of thing by the end of the series. But I fully expected it because, you know, you have like in Naruto, in Bleach, One Piece hasn't ended yet, but Naruto and Bleach, one of your big 3 of your shonen that I read as a kid, you had those final pairings that they canonically ended up with. And people either hated them or were like, yes. And so I wonder if Anno just decided to skip that whole deal. And they were like, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm not going to receive letters because I didn't pair Shinji up with the right person. So no, we're just going to avoid it altogether. It's kind of like we chose nothing instead of choosing one thing that made people mad. So I thought that was going to happen. Did not. I fully thought this entire series, I was waiting for a Voltron moment. I was waiting for a Power Rangers, we're going to connect the Evas like into a Megazord and fight the Angels. I thought going into this that Shinji and Rei and Asuka were going to team up, get inside the shell of one Eva unit that was clumped together, and fight the ultimate angel at the end. That was what I was thinking was going to happen. And in the rebuilds, with him and Kaoru, it kind of happens a little bit. It's the closest we get to it. But yeah, I was fully expecting it. I was like, oh, there's going to be some big boss angel at the end of the series, and they're going to team up and like clump together like Tetris and fight them together with all 3 of them, power the Nakama. And then Into Evangelion was like, nope, nope, nope. But yeah, I was completely convinced of that. I thought we would get more with Seal and their organization. I felt like for a long time the series was building up what Seal was, and we were going to have like Kaji or Masato infiltrate and go find out more about Seal and see what the deal is. But we don't actually get that. Instead, Seal's just a cult. And they're just like, nope, here's what they are. Anno's like, we're not going to delve into this. They're not important. It's just, they're not as important as you think they are. They think that they are more important than they actually are. And that's kind of the parody and the joke about it. But yeah, I was fully expecting, like, when Kaji started investigating the Murdoch corporations, I was like, oh, we're going to get a bunch of those. No, they're just fake companies that Gendo and them are using for Nerve. Oh, we have Seal. We're going to get a whole thing with them and Kaoru. Nope, we're just a cult. Like, we barely get anything with them, and Anno just really doesn't care. He's like, nope, don't need to explain. That is one thing I like. This series does not feel it necessary to explain every little thing. And we can criticize it for it, sure. But I do think it's kind of ballsy for Anno to be like, I don't have to tell you where this organization came from and what they do. I don't have to explain this to you. It's just a little MacGuffin for the story. That's not important. It's the sci-fi elements always, to me, seem like they took a back seat to the overarching psychological character work that was happening in the series. And I liked that a lot. As much as I like sci-fi, I liked it a lot. But I feel like if you went in this expecting like these grand reveals about Seal, you'd probably be kind of disappointed with where it goes with it. But I thought it was fine. We don't ever find out exactly who shot Kaji. That part still grates me. Like, the manga gives us hints, gives us enough to piece it together. But I'm still like, there's a part of me that loves the ambiguousness of this series, and then there's another part of me that's like, I want you to tell me who shot Kaji, damn it. Show me a face! Give me a panel! I was so ready in the manga for them to show me a panel of the murderer. And we get like a little hand of who we think shot him to kill him, but we don't know who originally shot him. I'm like, how dare you? How dare you, show? So that part I still expected to find out, but we did not. I also thought that we would get more of Baby Ray and her growing up. I thought we would get more of Baby Ray and her growing up. I was like, I fully expected to find out, like, to see Baby Ray grow from a child into adult version of Ray that we saw at the beginning of the series. I thought we would get a lot more with that, but I think Anno figured out, like, okay, I've given you enough of Baby Ray. You can connect the dots, piece it together yourself. I don't have to show you everything. And that is one nice thing about this series. I'm sure a lot of people complain because it doesn't spoon feed you exposition. It doesn't give you every little minute detail that you have to know. It gives you enough to piece it together in the story, and it treats you like an adult. That was the one thing about this show I liked, is that it didn't dumb it down for you or over-explain things. It wanted you to connect the dots, piece things together. And that was the kind of the fun part about discussing it in the comment section, was trying to piece things together and be like, okay, well, how does this fit with this? And what about this? And then somebody would comment and be like, well, there's also this. And you'd be like, oh yeah. And so that made it so much fun to watch and review, because you would start to like connect the dots without the show doing it for you. And I love that a lot. I'm all about a show that does not, it treats you like the adult that you are when you're watching, right? In addition to the Voltron aspect and the Power Rangers Nakama aspect of it, I did at one time, towards the very beginning of the series, when we first met Toji and Ida and Hikari, at the very beginning, I was thinking in the back of my brain, going, I wonder if Toji and Ida and Hikari are going to become pilots too, and the 6 of them are all going to team up to take down the Angel. That's what I initially thought, because I remember they were talking about at the beginning of the series that they were building units 4, 5, and 6. And I was like, oh, those are going to be the ones for Toji, Ida, and Hikari. And they're all going to join up. And then we have, like, you have your reverse trio. You have Shinji with the 2 girls, Rei and Asuka. And you have Hikari with the 2 boys, Toji and Ida. And they're kind of inverses of each other. And I was like, they're going to team up, or they're going to be 2 different units that work together to fight the Angels. That's where I thought we were heading when I was thinking back, like, before episode 11, before weaving a story. At weaving a story at that point of the series, I was like, oh no, we're not going that route at all. But at the beginning, like the first episodes 1 through 9, I was like, oh, this is going to be like, they're all going to team up, be Nakama, all this together. And then Anna's like, No, absolutely not. But that's what I thought. And the funny thing is Toji does end up becoming a pilot, just not in the way we expect or want. Because I remember when he became a pilot, I was like, oh, cool, he'll do this, this, and this. No. I expected Fuyu-chan to betray Gendo, and I guess in the manga he does. In the manga, he tells Yui that he kind of, out of spite, didn't tell him about Yui wanting to stick in the EVA unit. So I guess Fuyu does betray Gendo in that regard. But I had a thought in my mind that Gendo was like gonna, in the 11th hour, help Masato and Kaji, and they're gonna take down Nerve, and that was gonna be a thing. Hell no, in the rebuild, he's the only one that's helping Gendo. So it's like, that didn't happen at all. And alongside Fuyu-chan, I thought we would have more backstory with the three that were in the control room. I thought the three, Maya and Alba and Hyuga, I thought that throughout the series we'd have more backstory with them, that we'd maybe have like an episode focusing on the three of them, and kind of like Ritsuko's episode where she fights the bacterial angel in the anime series. I thought we would have like an episode that kind of focused on each of them. And we sort of do in that one episode. We get to see like them working on like the laundry and stuff, but it's not a lot. And then I thought in the manga there might have been like a side story with each of them, but we don't get it. I think that's intentional. They're meant to be like our kind of an audience surrogate that we know just enough about and connect just enough with, but they're not in-depth rounded characters like the others in the show. And that's fine. A show has to have flat characters too. And for being flat characters, they have a lot of depth to them as well. I think Alba's probably the flattest of the three because we know practically little about him, even though he's really cool and voiced by a very nice voice actor. But yeah, so I thought we'd get more with them. I thought we would get more at the Angels' creation, especially after we saw Kaoru coming out of the coffins. I thought maybe in the rebuilds we'd have like the Angels coming out of like eggs and stuff, and I wanted to see baby Ramiel, damn it. I wanted to see a little tiny triangle form into like an octahedron. I wanted to see Ramiel start as a 2D, a 2D little triangle, and slowly evolve into a 3-dimensional beauty that she is. That's what I wanted. Where's my Ramiel spinoff, damn it? That is one thing. Like the angel designs are so quirky and cool and different. But I was like, somebody just said, this shape, we're going to make it an angel. It's like, and they were like, yes, we are. I was just so floored by some of the angel designs, and I wanted more information about their creation. When we do the Magma Diver episode, we get like a full-on backstory of an angel, like we get it hatching out of the egg. But then when you get to the manga, it's not even a thing. They just gloss over that. They don't even show us that in the manga, and it's like, well, it's treated like filler, essentially. So I really had been hoping we'd get more with their creation, but no such luck. And then related to Gendo, I thought Gendo was going to become this big monster by the end of the series. I thought Gendo, especially when he talked about having the atom sample, and then when you saw it in his hand, I'm like, oh, he's going to turn into this angel. He's going to turn into like some monstrosity that's going to be like the size of an Eva. And I was fully expecting Gendo and Shinji to fight each other, which, hilariousness of all hilariousness, actually freaking happens in the rebuilds. When that moment happened in the rebuilds, I was like, this is what I predicted was going to happen, and it did. What? But it didn't happen the way I thought it was. It was like totally out of left field and the most bizarre thing. And I was like, yes, please. But yeah, I thought that Gendo and Shinji was going to be like a big driving final battle. And it's not really even it. In the anime, Gendo and Shinji don't even face each other, really. It's Rei versus Gendo. And in the manga, it's kind of the same thing. It's Rei versus Gendo, and then Shinji versus his own self with the instrumentality. But then the rebuilds, it is Gendo versus Shinji. So how about that? And then the last thing that I expected but didn't happen is that I thought that the ending was going to be rushed. Because people talked about the last 2 episodes way back when I started the series, and they weren't spoiling me, so I can't say that whoever did this was spoiling. But there were several comments that were like, oh yeah, up through episode 24, this series is hailed as a masterpiece. It's the best series. Like episode 24 and down is considered the most amazing thing. It's just people have a lot of problems with episodes 25 and 26. And so the entire series, I was waiting for episodes 25 and 26 being like, well, what the hell are we going to get? Everybody keeps saying it's going to be weird. And then as the series got weirder and weirder, I was like, well, how can they top this? I was like, this is pretty bizarre. And then episode 24 happened, and I was like, well, that was amazing. So I had kind of in my head worked out a couple ideas. One was that, okay, episodes 20 through 24 have been really trippy and psychologically bizarre. So maybe the last two episodes are just rushed. And then, because I was like, by the time episode 23 happened, I'm like, how much more bizarre can we get pre-end of Evangelion? And then episode 24 happened, and I was like, we just set the standard so high in terms of peaks and valleys, of highs and lows with characters in their psychological state. I'm like, how is episodes 25 and 26 going to top this? And so I thought that they were just rushed. Because I've watched the series before this called Number 6. I won't spoil Number 6 for y'all, but I will say this. It's based off a manga. The manga of Number 6 came first. And the manga is like a full-blown series. But when they were doing the anime for Number 6, they were getting to the end of the anime before the end of the manga was finished. You know what I mean? So if you've watched series like that, you know where I'm going with this. That the anime was going to finish before the manga had. So the anime didn't know how the manga ended. So they just kind of went, and just hurried up and finished it. And it's so frustrating. I love Number 6, and the manga's really good. But when you watch the anime, the last two episodes are very, very frustrating because you are like, oh, that's how it ends? And you just kind of like throw your hands up in the air and you're like, but, and then you go read the manga and you're like, but, and it's so frustrating. With this, by this point, I knew that it was anime first with Neon Genesis, manga afterwards, and the manga wasn't even a distinct canon, the same that the anime was. So I was like, well, maybe they just rush through the ending and just like cut a lot of plot. They just cut a lot of corners with the plot and then just give us an ending and go with it. Which is what they do. But it's the best ending. I end up liking episodes 25 and 26 so much because of just, it just said, oh, you expect this to happen? Well, here's 1,000 things you didn't expect that are canon instead. And you're just like, and then the congratulations at the end. That congratulations, I laughed for a solid minute. Because it was like everything I expected to happen. It defied all expectations. And the way that I thought at the end of it was, I was like, well, I thought this was going to be a bad ending. This is amazing. And so, yeah, I thought the ending would rush through it, and that it wouldn't satisfy me. And I was very much proven wrong. So that was great. So also, Alex Cornejo asks, is there stuff that you didn't expect happen that did? And this list is a little bit shorter. There's only 8 on this list. Stuff that I didn't expect to happen that did happen. One, all of the sexuality. I thought, because here's the thing, and again, this is not a shonen. I thought it was a shonen going in. And with most shonen, it's like, sexuality. Our main protagonist holding hands with someone? Oh, like clutch your pearls and hide your ankles. You know, they're not going to kiss until the final episode or movie. And then by that point, they have 6 children together. And I guess you can see them kiss. It's like, come on. It's like, this is 2022. And back in the 90s, Masato and Kaji are getting it on in front of a mirror. And you know exactly what's happening. I was floored that we had so much sexual content in this series. But that it was not a bad thing, and that for the most part it was with consensual adults. And I was like, wow, great, good on you, show. And that it wasn't afraid to do that it was ballsy enough to say, no, we're going to show this because it ties to the themes of our show. It's not just sex for the sake of being, you know, blatant and in your face. It's for the sake of the theme of the story, for the character work, and because it's just something we can do. And I love it for it. I was not expecting it. It blew my mind. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And the amount of nudity that was in this series, but it was like the fact that the fan service, because that's my biggest complaint with most shonen, is that it's just like big boobs for no reason. There is no reason for some of these skimpy outfits except to be fan service. And in this series, like I've said, there was a purpose. It was to either show you how uncomfortable the situation was, to make fun of fan service, or it was for the sake of a character development or plot development. That was it. And I was like, okay, that I can handle. When it's tastefully done with purpose, can do. Also, that Shinji would want to go through with the instrumentality. I thought Shinji would fight it. Like when it was first brought up that the instrumentality was a thing, episode 25 was such a big, like, splash of cold water in your face, because Shinji's like, yeah, this is the world that I want. And I'm like, wait, what? You want to go along with Gendo's plan to destroy everyone and make us all primordial soup? Excuse me? And so it was amazing that Shinji actually wanted to go through with it. And that he was like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm like, wait, what are we doing? Like, that part was a very big surprise. I figured that Shinji would like fight it to the very end, but he ends up actually wanting to go through with it because his depression and mental state kind of spirals to that point. So I thought that was a very interesting route that the story goes. And then this next one has to do with the rebuilds, because since like midway through the anime, I wanted Gendo backstory. I wanted an episode that was from Gendo's point of view. We got like Akagi's mom, we got Fuyu-chan, we got even Yui's point of view. I kept wanting to see, because Gendo in the anime is such a mysterious character, and we don't get a lot with him. He's just very in the shadows, and even at the end, when we find out more about him, it never felt like enough. And I was like, I just want more with Gendo and his character. And so the manga gives us more, but then the rebuilds, one of my biggest positives of the rebuilds is the whole stuff with Gendo. Like, they frame his character, they expand on it. That whole Thrice Upon a Time is still one of my favorites, because that whole thing with Gendo, I was like, yes, please. I'm here for this. I want all this backstory. It redeems his character in my eyes. It makes him 1,000 times more interesting. I was like, okay, story, you got me. I'm here. I'm here for this. So that was a lot of fun. And then in the manga, conversely, we get more in the manga with Shinji and his mom's family, with the sensei, with the uncle that he visits. That was another question in the anime that I was like, I want more of that. I want to know more about Shinji's life before he came to NERV. Shinji's life before he came back to his dad. And the manga gives us that. So I was like, good. We got more of that. That's wonderful. Something that I didn't expect to see. Characters actually dying. And their deaths being really hard hitting. Like even Rei in episode 23, when we know that she can come back, that death's really hard. Kaji dying is hard. Toji dying in the manga is really hard. Kaoru dying is really hard. Like, these characters that legit die and don't come back, even Masato, those are all such hard-hitting moments. And you've really come to enjoy these characters. And they're the characters you like. So it's characters you really appreciate. And they're not just side characters that the show kills off and you're like, oh, well, that was so-and-so. Oh, well. No, they're main characters that you grow to really appreciate in the series. And then when they die, you're like, well, no. You know? Even like Toji especially. Like, I thought in the anime Toji was dead in episode 18. I was like, oh my god, he's dead. And then in the anime, he doesn't. But in the manga, they're like, nope, he's gone. And it's really hard. So that was something I wasn't expecting. The realistic themes that are grounded in psychology. I started out the series thinking it was going to be just about Nakama, battle mechs, and shonen. And it ends up becoming like a Twin Peaks-esque psychological dive into a 14-year-old's brain. And all the depressing shit that's happening with him. I was not ready for the horror elements and the psychological thrilling aspects, but there are two parts of the series that I thought was the most fascinating, and I loved it the most because of it. Right? And along with that comes the idea that these episodes were not villain of the week. One of my favorite episodes is the one where Ritsuko fights a bacterial malware. Like, that's one of the best episodes. There's no angel battle. There's no Evas. It's just her on a computer having like an introspective look into her own psyche and her relationship with her mother as she's like battling this malware that's attacking their computer system. That's the episode, and it's one of my favorites. And it's not a villain of the week situation. Like, I love that this show took chances and was ballsy and did things you wouldn't expect and got away with it. That's the best part to me, right? And then I guess my last one that I wasn't expecting that I really liked was the fact that humanity was the last angel. It seems kind of corny, and you kind of maybe see it coming a little bit, and you're like, are they going to do it? Are they going to make humanity the last angel? And they do, but I really wasn't expecting it. I didn't think they'd go that route. I figured that once Kaoru died, that was the end. They're like, okay, all the angels are gone, now we'll do this. But the final big reveal that humanity was the last angel, I'm like, okay, all right, show, you've earned that. You've earned that. We can do it. All right. I like that a lot. So yeah. Those questions were all amazing, and I've already spent an hour answering them. But yeah, I thank you guys so much. And before I get to the tiers, I do want to send a special thanks to Patreon because one, y'all voted for this series. One, it was a Patreon only poll. Y'all came through and voted for this series. So thank you. But also many thanks to lots of people, to Anthony for getting me the files. You didn't have to do that, but you did, and you're amazing for it. The files that gave me the original music and soundtrack, you didn't have to do that, sir, but you did. Thank you. All of my love. To everybody in the Discord that were kind and checked for spoilers. In the comment section, I would be like, I'm not sure if this is a spoiler. Can you check for me? And they did. To all of the people that would we would have chats about the episodes, to everything. Like, I don't want that to stop in the Discord, obviously, because I still want to talk about this series and ramble about it when I can. But I'm so appreciative to all the support y'all gave me watching this series, because I don't know if I would have even chose this series had y'all not recommended it. And now I'm so inspired by other things that have to do with it. We'll talk about it later after the tiers, but thank you all so very much. I really appreciate it. Indeed. But now we got lots of things to rank, y'all. All right, so I have these tiers set up. So I had basically 3 different tier maker things that I went to. I had one to rank the episodes, because I actually was like, wait, I can rank the episodes through tier maker? Let's do that. So we're going to rank the episodes, and then I have where you can rank the ships, and then ranking the characters. So I feel like those are the 3 we should do. And we'll do the parent tier when we get to the characters. We'll do that as we start, right? So we're going to start this little tier maker video thing here and go from here. And it's going to start here so I can sync it up in 3, 2, 1. All right. So, okay. It does rank the 26 episodes, and they include the little director's apostrophe with them, which I think is absolutely hilarious. I freaking love it so much. But yeah, so let's go through this and see what we got here. So we have episodes 1 through 26, and we're going to consider the director's cuts included with those as well. So I made the top tier, the would rewatch, the satisfactory, it was fine, and then would not rewatch. So I love the anime so much. The anime is definitely my top fave. I love the anime, and so it's going to be hard to rank these episodes any worse than they are. But so let's make it, let's say I'm not good with math. We've got 5 categories here, right? Are there any that I wouldn't rewatch? We'll have to think about that. I will say no more than 5 in any category. Let's do that. So there will be 1 that we don't rewatch. We'll do that. We'll do 1 that we don't rewatch, and we'll do 5, no more than 5 in 1 category. And so I'm going to go ahead and just get this out of the way, because we all know it's coming. We all know it's happening. Episode 24, it's at the top. How can you not? It's Kaoru, it's Shinji, it's just the insanity. It's leading to the climax of the series. How can you not have that episode up there? That one's easy. I would say if we go on throughout here, I don't know why I called it episode 11, but it's episode 13 is the one where Ritsuko fights, where she fights the bacterial one. That one's honestly up there for me. I honestly love that episode. There's no Eva to fight. I'm going to put it in would rewatch. It's not my top. I'm going to put it in would rewatch. It's one of my favorites, but I feel like that episode's so good. and there's no Angel to fight with the Evas, but it's just an introspective look into Ritsuko's character. It gives us some more information. It teases some things with Seal, and it's like the halfway point of the series where things start to take a turn, and everybody said in the comments that it's when the script starts to take a turn from what Anno originally wanted. And for me, it was a turning point of being like, oh, I'm gonna really enjoy this. Okay. So that's kind of how it was for me. So I like that episode quite a bit. Let me see on here what other episodes that we can go through. As far as, I would say episode 18 is one of my tops. It's horrific. It's bad in terms of being angsty. Toji's death is in there, and it's also visually one of the most horrifying and heartbreaking episodes, and I'm here for it. And along the same lines with that, I would say, because I can only do 5 in that one. Oh, that's so hard. I would say it was fine. Magma Diver. It was fine. I would say Magma Diver, it definitely feels, in hindsight, like almost a filler episode, even though it may have not been. So I would say it was a fine episode. I'm just kind of like, it's okay. I would put episode 17, The Fourth Child, in Satisfactory. It does give us a lot of things, and it builds up to episode 18, but episode 18 is just so like... But I would say episode 17 is really good, but it's a lead up to episode 18. So I feel like the Satisfactory category are going to be a lot of lead up episodes and not episodes where the punchline happens. I feel like they're going to be those, right? But yeah, Magma Diver was fine. It was okay. Let me see what else we got here. That we have that one. Or was that episode even... Was Magma Diver even episode 10? Now y'all are going to be like, she has no clue what she's talking about. Oh, good. 10 was Magma Diver. I was like, wait a minute. The images that they show for the episodes, I was like, was 10 Magma Diver? I'm pretty sure that it was. I was like, wait a minute. Episode 12 is the one where Gendo and Futsuki go on the mission to find the Lance of Longinus. And then we see the Sahaquiel, comes down with his big arms, right? It's going to fall to Earth. That one, Sahaquiel, episode 12, it was fine. That one's okay. I feel like there's a little point in the mid, end of the first core of the series that they're like, oh, they're okay. They're fine episodes. That's all right. But, and then in the Still Darkness is when the power's cut off, right? And Montreal starts to burn its way through the headquarters with the acid. Montreal's the one with I feel like that episode in the Still Darkness, that one's going to be Satisfactory. I like that episode a bit. I just like Montreal's design a lot. So that one's good. I like that one. Let me see what else we've got here. As far as being the Wood rewatch, I would say, this one's really hard, but episode 16 is the one with the marble. The marble, when we get the introspection. I'm going to put under Wood rewatch. The episode 16 is the one with Shinji when he goes on the train with himself with the marble. That episode, I really liked it. It's not one of my favorites, but it, again, leading up to 17 and 18, it's really good. The Sickness into Death, Liliel. Yeah, that one is really good. The one that grows the shadow. I liked that episode a lot. Okay. So I want to go back to the beginning of the series and see... only putting 5 in these categories is making it really difficult, especially between Wood rewatch and Satisfactory, and it was fine. I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead and say episode 26 is one of the top episodes. I love episode 26 so much. Congratulations! I was like, yes, of course, congratulations! And just the ending of the series, it's one of my favorites. I freaking love that episode. The whole thing where the stage collapses and everything, and the stage being a metaphor for Shinji and his mind and all of that. I love that episode. It's really, really good. I like it a lot. I'm going to put episode 3, The Silent Phone, where we meet Shinji. So I'm going to put in It Was Fine. I like A Silent Phone. I like that episode. It's really good. We meet Toji and Ida and all of them, and Shinji has his big I guess it's so hard to rank these. But I do love it because I love the ending where Shinji's like crying and Toji and Ida kind of like comfort him. But that's like one scene, and in the overarching scheme of things, I feel like the ones that are in the "it was fine" category had one really good scene, but maybe didn't have overall all of the good scenes that the ones above them had. So we'll kind of go with that. And then I'm going to rank all of these when I get done sorting them out, to rank them all in order. Oh God, this is really hard. And I've got on my phone down here pulled up all the episodes. Now episode 4 is when Shinji decides to go in, when the Hedgehog's Dilemma, right? That is the Hedgehog's Dilemma, is episode 4. That one I would put under satisfactory. It's just so visually such a good episode. I'm leaning towards, that one's so good. But then Ray and Showdown, Ramiel. Ramiel shows up in episodes 5 and 6. Ask me to place these, damn it. Oh no! And we're not even to like the really good ones. Dang it. Okay. All right, we're gonna skip those for now. A Human Work, The Works of Man, where they go down. What's this? The one with Jet Alone is episode 7. Episode 7 is gonna be It Was Fine. As much as I like Jet Alone, we're gonna put it down there as It Was Fine. It's okay. But Jet Alone's good. But I do like the Masato and Ritsuko moments with them there. So we'll have that. Asuka Strikes is episode 8. And then episode 9 is Dance Dance Revolution. Oh man. I would honestly... Dance Dance Revolution 1 is so iconic though. It's so good. I would put... And then I would rewatch... I'd satisfactory but episode 8. I like episode 8 when Asuka first appears. That one would be pretty good. Here's the thing. Episode 23 is just crazy and bizarre. But then episode 22 is the one with Asuka's backstory and the whole thing of staying human. And that's the one where we have Ariel, the one that has the Hallelujah. I would rewatch episode 22. Episode 22 is really good. I like that episode and the Hallelujah moments. It's so bonkers and things get crazy. I would rewatch that one. I feel like episode 23... Oh, damn it. It's really good too because Tears is really good as well. And then dang it, and Ritsuko, that whole situation with Ritsuko, I would rewatch 23 as well. Okay. All right, so we got those. This is going to be bad. Oh, episode 26 has the regular and the director's cut on here. Okay, this isn't cheating, but I'm going to go ahead and put 26 director's cut with that. I consider those two together. I don't know why they separated them for the tier, but they did. Okay, so that leaves, I want to go back and look at around the 15s, like what we get with those. Episode 15 was Lies and Silence, which is Kaji's whole thing. And the whole kissing thing with that one. Oh, yeah. 15, Lies and Silence. 15's a rewatch. I like that one a lot. I would say 15 would be one of the rewatches because that's the one where they all meet in the bar and then afterwards. That one's really good. Angel Attack episode 1 is so iconic. I would say episode 2, The Beast, is fine. The Beast is okay. It gives it's sort of an aftermath to episode 1 and it gives us that final, again, it has the one shot of the Beast eye at the end, which is amazing, but otherwise, it just kind of is setting up, it's an aftermath episode from episode 1, and then it's just setting up other things to come. So it's kind of like, well, okay. And then the man's battle, Azrael appears, and we have the whole thing with their Azrael. And that's when Shinji leaves, and then he returns at the end in episode 19. I am going to put it under... One of these may have to drop down to would not rewatch. But I don't know which one yet. So I would put the It Was Fine for episode 19. Episode 20 is pretty good, though, because that has the shape of Hearts and Humans. And that's really good because that's when Kaji gives her the last gift. That one's satisfactory. I like episode 20. And it has the creepy shot of the Evangelion with the different bandages. Okay. So... Oh, God. This may... Okay. 6. Okay, I said we could do 6, and then 1 would have to go down. Okay. Episode 21 is the big flashback episode. I would rewatch that one. It's all the exposition about Nerve. I liked that episode quite a lot. I would rewatch that. And then episode 14. Episode 14, that's the one with Ray's poetry, isn't it? Yeah, Seal the Script, the Human. It's kind of like the recap episode. Yeah. Okay, we're going to put it down here under It Was Fine and choose from these. Okay, so one of those is going to drop down to Would Not Rewatch. But that one's good, but it is kind of just weaving a story. It is like definitely the midpoint episode. And all I really take from it is like Ray's poetry and everybody starting to like, she goes to recover the Lance of Longinus. And you know what? Damn it. I'll think about which. It's definitely going in this. It Was Fine. And we'll choose how to rank them from here. But episode 9 is Dance Dance Revolution. I would probably. It was satisfactory. I liked that episode a lot. That was a good one. And then we have from here. We ended up with more. I feel like I did not sort this out right. Because we have 4 episodes left. Maybe it was 7 times 4 was 20. Well, we'll go with it. I definitely am going to put episode 25 up in the best category because it's just really good. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I guess we can drop it down. Okay. Episode 5 and 6 are with Ray. Episode 5, they're both really iconic. I would definitely rewatch episode 6. I would actually honestly put episode 6 up there in the top episodes because it's the conclusion of the Ramiel battle. It's Shinji and Rei in that important conversation about why she's doing the things that she's doing. It's Shinji telling her, when he tells her the iconic line at the end, like, don't just say you're going to die, come back to me. And they open up the hatch and they shake hands and then she smiles at him. Yeah, I like that episode a lot. And then I would rewatch Angel Attack. And yeah, I guess we could all narrow this down. And then would have the satisfactory episode of them. So I guess, yeah. All right. So I guess that did all work out. Although we only have the top 5. So I would say my top 5 episodes, if I'm ranking them in order, I'd have to do it this way. My least favorite, honestly, my least favorite might be Magma Diver. It's probably my least favorite in the series. Then episode 2. Episode 7, even though I do love Jet Alone, it's probably down there. Episode 7. And then I would say episode 14 would be next to last there. Then 19. And then I would say 12 before 19. Yeah. I would say, okay, my bottom of my list is going to be Magma Diver's probably my least favorite. Then Beast. Then the one with Jet Alone. And then the episode 12. Then Weaving a Story. Then 19 with the Aftermath of Toji. And then episode 3, because I do like episode 3. It's just probably in the bottom there. And then Shinji and Asuka's moment. I would say Shinji and Asuka's moment. And then meeting Asuka. And then episode 9 with Dance Dance. Even though I like Dance Dance Revolution, it would be down there. And then probably I would put episode 11 before those two, I guess. And put episode 17 before Dance Dance. But then I liked episode 20 a lot. And then Hedgehog's Dilemma is really close up there because I like the episode a lot. It's so low key, but it's really important. I like it. Then Angel Attack. And then after Angel Attack, I would say, this is really hard because I like episode 15 a lot. I would say probably Asuka's episode next and then Tears, I would say. And then I really like the exposition episode with Nerve. And then I would say 15, 16, 13. So that would all be... So my top 5 would be 24, 26, 25, 18, and 6. Yeah. And then 13 would be 6. 16 would be 7. 15 would be 8. 21 would be 9. And 23 would be 10. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that top 10. So yeah, it's like ranking Attack on Titan episodes. It's really hard because there are some days where I feel like I would want to put Dance Dance Revolution up here, but then there are some days I'd want to drop like Tears down a ways. But then I definitely, as you can see, the latter half of the series are really my favorite. My favorite is after episode 14, but there's still like episodes 1 and 6 and 13 that are up there that I like quite a bit as well. So yeah, that all sounds good episode tier wise. Now everybody in the comments are going to be like, you are wrong. But again, apples and oranges. I feel like we can sort this out however we need to, right? Sure we can. Okay. So that was fun. I like that. I feel good with that. I feel at this point, if we're going to rank the episodes, we might as well turn to Whiteboard Coon here and go ahead and talk about the anime. So the anime is definitely my first pick, and we'll talk about why here in a little bit. And then my second is going to be the manga and talk about that. And I didn't really think about ranking the volumes. I would say in terms of sets, here, we'll just do that. In terms of sets, my favorite set is probably 10 through 12. That's my favorite set. And then I would say from there, it's probably really close between 7 and 9 and 13 and 14. And then 4 through 6 and then 1 through 3. So yeah, my top 5, I would say this one is first, volumes 10 through 12, 7 through 9 is third. The ending is second, ending is third, 4 through 6 is fifth, and then, as you can see, for the most part, the manga gets better as it goes. I only put 13 and 14 in the middle because it mainly deals with the end of Evangelion, which it doesn't stray too much from the movie, so it's kind of like, it didn't feel like a recap, but it kind of did. I remember reading the last 2 volumes, I was like, oh, this is cool, until you get to the very end, and then it is different, and you're like, oh. But for the most part, I just kind of put it in the middle because I'm kind of indifferent about it. The first 6 volumes are good. I really like them. I just really like 7 through 12. Those volumes are top-notch, awesome stuff. So that'd be kind of my ranking there. And then as far as the rebuilds go, they're my third for reasons we'll talk about. But as far as ranking, like which rebuilds are the best, because there were 5 movies that I technically looked at. The recap movie that we watched is definitely the last one because it was mostly a recap. There was the symphony elements, but that was pretty much it. So it's like, that was that. And then I would say that 1.11 is definitely my number 4 for sure. It gets harder between, my first one is Thrice Upon a Time. I loved Thrice Upon a Time. It was great. I was like, the first hour of Thrice Upon a Time, I was like, yes, please. And then there was like the middle part of it that I was like, But then the stuff with Gendo at the end, it was sandwiched by 2 really, really good things. And there was some junk in the middle, but I liked Thrice Upon a Time the best. I think thematically, overall, it felt the most like Neon Genesis Evangelion from the anime. It was my favorite. Here, I feel like you can have a toss-up. I honestly like 3.33 quite a bit because it's so freaking bonkers. But I like 2.22 as well. So I'm going to put 2.22 here and 3.33 in second. Only because I think 3.33, it ties over to Thrice Upon a Time better. You almost, and it's designed that way, this is almost like together as one like 5-hour movie is really what it is. And so that's why I put them together as first and second because they tie together so well. I do like 2.22 a lot. 1.11's like, it's fine. But this one's really good. These 2 are great. And then these 2 are okay. So, but yeah, nothing was bad. But that's just kind of the rankings with those. And then let's talk about the ships. Ships. God. I will make note, there is one ship on here that is not listed. And I'm pretty disappointed about it. I don't think it's on here. We'll get to it when we get to it. I'm like, why? There are some crack ships on this one that I'm like, excuse me. Why do we have this crack ship on here, but you don't have one of my OTPs? Thank you. Okay. So I put this as OTP. Love the pairing. Like the pairing. I'm neutral about it. I dislike. I would say dislike or why? I guess I'd be like, or why? Why are we doing this? And the why category is going to be Shinji and Hikari. I'm sorry, but we don't have Ida and Asuka on here, but you gave us Shinji and Hikari? Why? What? Another Y is going to be Asuka and Masato. No. I'm just like, wait, what? No. So those two pairings, I'm like, they feel like such crack ships. I'm like, absolutely not. No. I would say we'll just put Y on those two. And I'm going to put this one, not a fan. And then, oh God. And then this one, I'm going to put neutral. I'm going to change my tags up a little bit on this one. Yeah, but yeah, the Y, we don't have Ida and Asuka, but you give us Shinji and Hikari. Okay. I see how it is. For the record, if Ida and Asuka were on here, OTP status, y'all. You can't stop me. I feel like I've converted a few on the Discord to Ida and Asuka, and I'm like, yes, join me into healthy Asuka in a relationship that's not toxic with Ida. It's been prefaced in the anime. It's been hinted at in the manga. It's all but established in the rebuilds. It's been there the whole time since the beginning. Join me in my ship of Ida and Asuka and give me more than 3 pieces of fan fiction on AO3 because that's all there is right now and it bothers me. Okay. So yeah, those two, Y. Kaji and Ritsuko, no. I don't see it. I feel like Kaji and Ritsuko, they both were aware of what was going on. That none of them really cared for the other, and it was just, oh, we're just flirting with each other, but there's nothing to it. There's no substance to that ship. So I'm like, no, I don't think so. I would say if I had a neutral ship, I guess Toji and Ida. I guess I'm neutral. I never really thought about Toji and Ida as a ship. That's, You would think as much as I ship BL, I would be like all about Toji and Ida, but I honestly just saw them as bros. I guess it's because I instantly saw Hikari and Toji together, and I see Ida and Asuka together, so I never really saw Ida and Toji together. So I guess I just saw them as best friends. So I'm neutral to it. It's like, eh. I'm not a fan of the Gendo and Dr. Akagi, the senior ship. No, that ship is just like toxicity times 1,000. She was just unrequited love and he was just using her. Bleh. Nope, not a fan. Not a fan of that at all. Also, no. Kaji and Asuka, no. That's why somebody was trying to say way back when Thrice Upon a Time, they were like, well, you're I'm going to push my glass up. You are wrong to ship Asuka and Ida because Ida is a father figure to Asuka. In the movie, he was the one in the doll outfit and he's clearly a father figure to her. I'm like, okay, first of all, I totally take that scene where she views Ida as the doll as symbolic. He's not actually older than her. They're literally the same age. She just hasn't aged, so she seems older, but he wasn't around her as a child, as an old man. No, it's symbolic. And if you argue that he's like a father figure to her, it's just her. She's stuck in this childlike state because of the curse of the Eva. And so, of course, he seems like a father figure. But as we find out in the movie, the curse of the Eva gets broken. She catches up to the right age. Guess what? Now they're the same age again, and we can ship them. So, that's where I'm at. So I'm like, yeah, no. I'm totally about them shipping. And he is kind of like Kaji in Thrice Upon a Time, and that he is kind of like a fatherly mentor figure. But you know what? If she likes him because Ida reminds her of Kaji, but it's a more mutual, healthy relationship, sure, go for it. Okay, nothing wrong with that. If you ship Shinji and Rei together, it's the exact same thing because Rei is like Yui. So if you're okay with shipping Shinji and Rei together, despite the fact that Rei is kind of like the younger version of Yui, then it's totally fine to ship Asuka and Ida together if Ida is like the younger version of Kaji. There's no problems with that. And my thing is, if the ships that I'm not a fan of, you are gung-ho about, that's fine. Y'all do you. This is just my opinion. and like, if you're not on board the Ida and Asuka train, I totally understand it. I'm supporting it as much as I can because it's a crack ship and nobody else seems to support it, even though the content itself supports it in many ways, right? At least to me. So that gives me the idea of the Shinji and Rei ship. I'm neutral about it. The part about, and I say I'm neutral about it because, and again, I know a lot of people are being like, you're a hypocrite because you love Asuka and Ida, but you're neutral about Shinji and Rei. The only thing about it is that the person that Rei is from is Lilith and Shinji's actual biological mom. Ida is not biologically related to Asuka, and neither is Kaji. But Rei is. So I'm like, Rei is biologically related to Shinji. So it's hard for me to ship them together, right? It's hard because there's some of Yui's biological DNA in there. It's just weird to me. But if you ship them together, I don't blame you. And I'm kind of neutral about it because the manga really, honestly, the manga and the rebuilds made me really kind of hop on board the Shinji and Rei train. That in the anime I wasn't about Shinji and Rei romantically at all, but the rebuilds in the manga made me go, okay, I can see it. I get where people come from when they ship them. I get it. So if you ship it, that's fine. That's okay. I'm fine with it. Speaking of shipping with Rei, I'm also very neutral about Rei and Kaoru. The only thing I like about Rei and Kaoru is that it's kind of suggesting that they're the reincarnations of Lilith and Adam. And so that part of it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Okay. I'm like, I kind of like that. That's neat. But then on the converse side of it, I'm also like, well, but then it's Lilith and Adam like reliving their lives. And I'm like, where is the identity of Rei and Kaoru in that? So then I get kind of like about it. So that's where I am in terms of that, right? So there's that. But I'm pretty neutral about it. If you ship them, I get it. And by the end of the rebuilds, when we see them together on the train tracks, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. You could see that being a thing. All right. I guess we can go with it. Sure. Kaji and Shinji, no. I almost want to put it on why, but I get why. I get why people would ship Kaji and Shinji. No. It's kind of the same way that I feel about Kaji and Asuka. Kaji's way too old to be with a 14-year-old. He's in his late 20s. No, I'm around the same age as Kaji and Masato in this series. The idea of me even remotely having any attraction towards a 14-year-old is the most disgusting thing. So absolutely not. So I'm like, no, not a fan of it, but I'm not going to judge you. Just know. OTPs, Kaji and Masato. OTP. Like, absolutely. They are by far my favorite ship of the whole series. I think they're the most legitimate. They're the most canon. It's the most developed ship. I love them so much. And honestly, Gendo and Yui OTP, especially after the rebuilds. That the rebuilds made Gendo and Yui an OTP for me. The manga helped out a lot, especially the final scene we see Gendo and Yui standing next to each other to Shinji. I liked that. But man, the rebuilds, that scene where Gendo like talks about her being the only one to accept him for who he is, like the scenes of them in bed together and like the moonlight on them, like it's just, and the shot of Gendo when he loses Yui and how sad he is and torn up about it is, it's just like chef's kiss. Like it really got me on board with that pairing, and I was like, absolutely love it so much, right? But Gendo and Fuyu, why? No. Gendo and Fuyu-chan, no. That's like mentor mentee to enemies to co-workers to lovers. No, I don't see Fuyu-chan and Gendo at all as a ship, but if you want to ship them, you go right ahead. Toji and Hikari, OTP for sure. Like, the rebuild was, again, a blessing. The rebuilds were a blessing for all of these major ships because you got them having a kid. You got Masato and Kaji having a kid. You got Gendo and Yui backstory and hooking up. You got Hikari and Toji having a kid. I was like, it's like a shipper's paradise, right? As far as those go. I really love that Toji, you see the seeds of it in the anime and the manga, the seeds of them being together, and then it slowly blossoms in the anime into the rebuilds. And in the manga, not so much. But I do like that you get to see them together in the rebuilds and you get like a full-fledged future with them. They get the happy ending. My heart sinks for them, right? Not a fan of Masato and Shinji romantically. Am a fan of them as mentor and mentee, as a big sister little brother relationship, even like a maternal. I never really viewed Masato as a maternal figure to Shinji because she's not a great mom. She's just not. Masato leaving Kaji Jr. in the rebuilds was probably a wise decision because Masato is just not stable enough to have a kid and raise it. She just isn't. And so I always viewed Masato and Shinji's relationship more as like a big sister, little brother type of thing, especially because they both have similar parental experiences. But romantic wise, no. Again, late 20s, 14-year-old, I'm very neutral with the Hyuga Masato ship. I'm very neutral with it. I'm like, it's okay. I guess I see why you would ship it. It feels very one-sided on Hyuga's part. I don't think Masato ever really viewed him like that. And also it makes Hyuga a rebound. And do you want to be a rebound for Kaji? Nobody does. How could you? How could you? But I do love Maya, the lady love in Neon Genesis. I'm all for Maya and Ritsuko because Ritsuko gets done dirty by a lot of guys in this series. And you know what? Her and Maya could have been a really good thing. I think her and Maya could have been really good. I think that if she had lived to like have a relationship with Maya, I think it could have worked out. I'm like, Ritsuko, you better leave them men alone. Them men are doing you no favors. You don't need them. You need yourself a lady like Maya. She seems like she would treat you well, Ritsuko. And it could be like the subordinate gets with the boss type of trope. I was all for that. It's a shame that we don't see if it plays out or not. I guess it doesn't because Ritsuko gets killed, but in the same vein of lady love, I love Asuka and Mari. I do. Is it kind of... The rebuilds make Mari weird. The rebuilds make Mari a weird choice with any of these characters because the rebuilds suggest that maybe Mari was around when Shinji's parents were, and that to me is odd. So shipping... Again, I feel like almost a hypocrite that I couldn't ship Kaji and Masato with our trio, but I could ship Mari with Asuka because Mari's older, theoretically. But you know what? All of the chemistry that Mari has with Asuka is really good. Another pairing that I wish was on here, if we talk about lady love, is Mari with Yui, because in the manga, Mari and Yui are together. And I love it. I love the idea that Mari had a crush on Yui, and then Gendo came in, and Mari's like, well, damn it, she likes Gendo and men and not me. And so I like that dynamic a lot. And I wish that little picture was on there because I would have put Yui and Mari right up there. Not a fan of Shinji with Mari. Surprising no one. I'm not. And the only reason, again, at least Asuka doesn't know that Mari hooked up her parents. But Shinji, there's that... We, the audience, know that she hooked up his parents and was around the same time. That's just weird to me. And I know a lot of people argue, be like, well, when Shinji recreates the world, Mari is the same age as him. And I'm like, we don't know that. We don't know that. And maybe she is, but it's still so bizarre. I'm like, did she forget that she hooked Shinji's parents up with? I mean, can you imagine, like, you going out with someone that, like, played matchmaker for your parents? It's weird. It's just weird. And I've said this in the rebuilds and the other comments. I almost wish that if Mari had been a character that we didn't know the entire time, and if Shinji had just came in at the very end and was like, hey, Mari, you're my soulmate, and it was none of the people that he'd been involved with the entire series, I would have actually loved that. Because if that was Anno's message of Shinji moving on, it would have fit perfectly. But he's not moving on with Mari because she's been there the whole time. So, just can't do it. Just can't do it. I'm very neutral about, I guess, maybe why. Why Rei and Asuka? Rei and Asuka didn't like each other the whole series. They're polar opposites. I don't get that ship very much at all. I'm like, nah. I would say I'm neutral about Fuyu and Yui. I don't love it, but I don't dislike it. I feel sad for Fuyu-chan in that relationship because it's very unrequited love. It's kind of like, it's very similar to Akagi's mom and Gendo, where it's a one-sided love, but Yui clearly doesn't like Fuyu-chan. The only thing that makes me elevate it from not a fan to neutral is that with Akagi's mom and Gendo did not like her at all. He was just using her. But in this, I feel like Yui did like Fuyu-chan. She like opened up to him. She confided a lot in him. She told him to look after Gendo after he died. So I feel like she at least reciprocated a lot of those emotions to Fuyu-chan, whereas Gendo did not reciprocate those to Akagi's mom at all. So that's why I'm kind of neutral with it. And then we have Asuka and Kaoru. Why? They never have any screen time together, hardly at all. I think they have some in the manga, and they have some in the rebuilds, a little bit. I feel like the fandom wants there to be more Asuka and Kaoru content, and I'm one of them. I would really wish that we had more Asuka and Kaoru content. I was expecting it, I was wanting it, and we just don't quite get it in the series, right? We don't quite get it. But I wish we had. I was like, because I think it would have been an interesting dynamic. I feel like if we had gotten more content with them, I maybe would be neutral or loving it with it, because I feel like Kaoru would drive Asuka crazy though, right? Because she kind of likes ribbing at Shinji a little bit. She doesn't want to admit it, but she likes ribbing at him. Whereas Kaoru would not be ribbed. He'd just be like, oh yeah, you're right. And she'd be like, and actually get mad. So I don't know how that dynamic would go, but I'd say I'm kind of like in the Y or neutral with it. So that leaves the two Shinji pairings that are probably the most debated in all of it. I do love Shinji and Kaoru a lot. And it's not just for the BL angle. It's the aspect of what I love about Shinji and Kaoru is that it's been portrayed to us in 3 different versions. And in all 3 versions, I root for them as a couple. Even in the manga where they really don't care for one another in the manga, by the end of it, that ending shot where Kaoru's like, you're going to remember me like the others, right? And Shinji's like, probably more than anyone else. And they just kind of look at each other and it's like, what could have been? And then he kills him and it's like, ugh! And then you see Shinji at his lowest point in the anime and Kaoru swoops in and in 13 minutes captures our hearts and rips them out and stamps on them and crushes them in our hands like the Evas. It's like, ugh! And then the rebuilds, we get so much Kaoru content with Shinji. It's just like Shinji and Kaoru is what you want to root for, and then it doesn't come to fruition. I guess it would be along the same lines as Shinji and Rei, except Kaoru is not biologically related to Shinji, so it works. I will say, though, I almost want to put Rei and Shinji up here in the love it. I almost want to put, if it was just the manga, I would probably have them in love it, but then you have the rebuilds and the anime that kind of like makes me go, I'm just neutral. But I do love Kaoru and Shinji an awful lot. And the fan art and fandom does not help. Does not help. No. So that leaves Asuka and Shinji. And maybe surprising people, I do love it. The manga turned me around. I would say, here's my thing about the relationships. If we were talking about rebuilds, I'm very neutral. Because in the rebuilds, I feel like Shinji and Asuka don't get a lot of time really with one another because of Mari. And so that kind of hinders that a little bit. And there's more Rei and Shinji content in the rebuilds. So, and if I'm doing just the anime, I would probably stick it with just neutral as well. Because the anime kind of, pushes Asuka away from Shinji to the side for a while. But the manga made me like their relationship quite a bit. And honestly, Volume 14 and Volume 13, I know I put it right in the middle, but they made me really appreciate Shinji and Asuka's relationship. Those last 2 volumes of the manga made me go, oh, this is what it could have been. Okay. And I liked it. And I really, honestly, I was rooting for Shinji and Asuka at the very end when he sees her on the train. He reaches for her hand and grabs it. And he's like, oh, hey. And she's like, oh, hey. I was like, hey, they could be in a relationship. And then Ida shows up and steals her from him. And I was like, ah! No, and then Ida's like, oh, we're going to be rivals, you and me, Shinji. And I was like, yes, you are. So, yeah, there we go. So, yeah, I do end up loving the Shinji and Asuka relationship quite a bit. In the manga, especially. In the anime and the rebuilds, I'm kind of like, it's fine. But, yeah. So, I'd say my top 5 OTPs, my top 5 ships of the series are Masato and Kaji are definitely first. I would honestly say that Toji and Hikari are second. I would say that Asuka and Ida are third. And then I would say fourth would be probably Kaoru and Shinji, and fifth would be Yui and Gendo are my top 5. But like I said, I multi-ship. I also will not judge you if your ships are any different than mine. Those are just my opinions on the ships of Neon Genesis. You can ship me your full bottles of wine that I will throw into my glass on your behalf. And you can throw your digital tomatoes at me all you like. But those are just my opinions about those. Right? Okay. So, we need to talk about the characters. Right? We need to talk about the characters. Our last tier in all of this. Dear God. Okay. So I guess we'll do the parent tier first. And Alex Cornejo had requested a parent tier. We'll do this first. We'll just get this out of the way, won't we? As far as the parent tier goes, let's just kind of find the parents and move them up to the front so I can figure out who is who. We've got Masato's dad. We've got Gendo. We have Yui. We have Ritsuko's mom. Put her right there. Am I missing any parents? I guess, does Adam and Lilith count as parents? I guess they do. I guess Adam and Lilith count as parents. Sure they do. Where's Adam at? Oh, we got Asuka's mom. We'll put her up there. Where's Adam? Is he on this? I guess we'll count him as the little ghost here, right? I guess those are our parental figures. Sure. And I guess we could put Kaji and Masato up here on the parent tier, right? We can do that, can't we? We'll just cover them as characters as well, right? Also, I like that some of the rebuild versions versus the anime versions are on here, which is kind of fun. There's like a rebuild version of Asuka versus the anime version of Asuka, which is curious. And then there's anime. Why do we have 3 Asukas? Oh, we could put Hikari up here as a parent along with Toji. We'll just cover them all at once. That'll be fun. That'll be great. And I guess we have the O1 unit counts as Yui as well as a parent. We'll add that as well. Curious. Okay. So, in terms of that, man, we have more parents than I thought. We'll just go ahead and do parent tier as well as character tier. In addition, we'll just do them together. That'll work. So I have on here S is the best, as we do. A are characters that I love. B are characters that I like. Don't love, but I like them. C, can't complain. C is that weird category where you don't really have anything to say about those characters. You're just like, eh. And then D is dislike. I don't like them very much, but they're not my least favorite. And then E is for ew. E is for ew. And I'm actually going to pull up the angels while I'm getting to make sure I get the right angels on here. So let me pull up the angels from Neon Genesis whilst I do this. But yeah, so we're going to start talking about our parental tier first. The angels in Neon Genesis. I just have like a list of all of them together. Fun times. Okay. So as far as parents go, I would say I can't complain about Masato's dad. I can't complain about him because you know what? Even though he seemed like he was a really distant, negligent dad, he did save Masato and give his life for her at the end. At the end of it all, he did give his life for her. He saved her. Even though he wasn't seemingly a great dad, he did sacrifice himself for Masato at the end. So what can we do about that? I feel like that way. Also, can't complain about Lilith or Adam. They didn't know. They didn't know what was going to happen. They're just these entities. They're just trying to like live their lives and, you know, they get in a quarrel with one another and then what can we do? They didn't know. They're just like, they can't complain. We can't complain about Adam and Lilith. They're like, Lilith spent half of her life just nailed up to this cross. She didn't know. And Adam was stuck on the moon. So what can we do with them, right? What can we do with them? We can't do anything with them. So they're there. They can't complain. I did not care for Asuka's mom, if I'm being honest. And I know what y'all are going to say. You're going to be like, Romania, you're being really harsh. Her mom had a lot of problems. She did. But I still didn't care for her character too much. I felt really bad for Asuka and everything she had to deal. She tried to connect with her mom. Her mom hung herself right in front of her kid. It's like, I mean, not in front of her kid. She stumbled upon it, but still. I just didn't really care for her character at all. And so she was always like, I was like, just a source of trauma for Asuka. And I didn't care for that, right? I like Yui's character. I don't love Yui's character, but I like Yui's character. And I guess I'm going to have to put the O1 unit with that. That I like those characters. The O1 unit and her tied together. There was always a vibe with Yui that felt... There was always a vibe with Yui that felt like she was not ever as innocent as some of the other characters portrayed her to be. And so that kind of there's a little shadow to her character. And I almost wish we got more of that. But I like that at the end of the day, she did care about Shinji. And a lot of the things she was doing was for him, even if she wasn't around to like be there for him. So, and the O1 unit with her presence in it, it does help, Shinji out a lot, so I have to put her in like. I don't love Yui's character, but I do like her character a lot. All right. Do I put Kaji up at the top? Do I put Kaji as some of the best? The best of the best? Yes. I love Kaji so much. I really love Kaji. He's such a great character. He's such a great character. He's sexy. He's suave. He's smooth. He cares about Masato. He's a secret detective, undercover agent. He's checking off all my boxes. And he tries to help Shinji. And he loves Masato. It's just, Kaji's such a good damn character. And I'm sad he dies. And he's just so good. Even in the rebuilds, I just want to see Kaji, Masato, and Kaoru on a farm making watermelons. The only weird part about Kaji was the part where he was okay with Shinji getting usurped by the O1 unit, but that's a minor blip in his character. Everything else about Kaji, I was like, yes, please. And the funny thing is, I was really sketchy about Kaji at the beginning of the series. I remember back in episodes 7 through 9, I was like, who's this character? He's kind of shady. And by the time we get to episode 18, I'm like, I love him. So I'm like the one character from Spy Family that's like all this stuff, and then I love him. That's literally me and Kaji's character. Kaji Ryoji. We don't have Kaji Jr. on here, which is a real travesty of all characters from the rebuilds to be on here. He's not present. But I would put Kaji Jr. under like. I like his character quite a bit. I disliked, again, with the mom theme, I disliked Ritsuko's mom. I thought she was really toxic. She strangled a child out of jealousy. She strangled baby Ray out of jealousy, which is insanity. But yeah, did not care for her character at all. And then she succumbed. And in the end, she didn't help Ritsuko blow up the place. She betrayed her own daughter in computer form to help a man that didn't love her back. I was like, what are you doing, Akagi's mother? So yeah, no, I don't like her character. I can't believe that phrase. She betrayed her own daughter while in computer form to help a man that didn't love her through an affair. Let that sentence sink in for a hot second. But yeah, no, didn't like her character. Nope. Hikari, love. Hikari's such a great character. She's great as student rep, great as a mom, great as a support. In the rebuilds, she's supporting Rei. It's wonderful. I loved her character throughout that series. She's such a great character and so supportive. And I feel so damn bad for her when Toji in the anime, and especially in the manga, when we think that he's dead or know that he's dead, and her character just kind of plummets. So I'm glad the rebuilds gave her the chance not only to have a happy ending, but also to have a kid and be an awesome mom. So I like Hikari. She's great. Masato, God, I love Masato. She's up there. Her and Kaji have to be together. Her and Kaji have to be together. They just have to be. I love Masato's character. She's definitely flawed, for sure. I think that a lot of people give her a lot badder rap than she deserves. I think a lot of people only remember the kiss from End of Evangelion and the rebuilds, and so they assume that she's this groomer because of that kiss. And I'm like, no, not really. I mean, Gendo's more of a groomer than her. I feel like Masato's character gets a bad rap for that reason. And yeah, she's an alcoholic. She's extremely flawed, but I like how layered her character is and how much depth the anime. I think that's why I like the anime the most. It gives her character so much depth, and the manga does as well, that I feel like the rebuilds kind of, if you just watch the rebuilds, you won't appreciate her character as good as it is in the manga and the anime. Because her character is so nuanced and has such, and she defies a lot of stereotypes for women. Like when we first met her character, I was like, are you going to be this like female character that's just like a source of fan service? And then it becomes a joke that the fan service is that Shinji's suffering and the fan service is not real fan service. And yeah, she kind of becomes the flagpole, essentially the flagship for the idea that fan service is not going to be something good in this series. And I like that she takes the idea that we think about her from episode 1, that she's going to be this over-sexualized character, and we slowly get more and more into her character and realize how she puts herself out there and why she does that. And it adds to the complexity of her nature, to the themes and morals surrounding her. I just really love Masato. And she's very relatable in a lot of senses. You know, I think for a lot of female characters and audience members, she's relatable. I like Masato. Now, parent-wise, she'd be down here. Parent-wise, she's not a great parent at all. She, leaves her kid like Moses style with someone else. But character-wise, I love Masato, right? And Kaji, parent-wise, we don't know what to say about him because he died before he realized he was a parent. So, what can we do? And that leaves Gendo. I love Gendo's character. I love him. I love Gendo's character. I love him because he's like a love to loathe character. There are characters in series. If you've watched Attack on Titan with me, you know there are characters that I loathe. I loathe them. They're scummy, or they're arrogant, or they're just awful characters. But they're so damn entertaining to watch, and you just want to watch them that you're just like, ugh! And that's how Gendo is for me. Now, through the anime, love to loathe. I thought Gendo was, if it weren't for the rebuilds, Gendo would be like down here. But the rebuilds add so much to his character for me. And the rebuilds, they really, if it were just the manga, he'd be down here. If it was just the anime, he'd be down in like here or in the like, maybe, depending on like if you just want to be like kind of sadistic and be like, oh no, he's great because he's so bad. But the rebuilds add so much depth to his character and give him such an overall view that I'm like, no, I really do love Gendo. By the end of the series, I ended up loving his character. I still loathe him for a lot of the things that he does, and he doesn't do good things for 90% of the series, but he's one of those characters that he's so iconic, the pose, everything. I love his character so much, and I'm like, yeah, his character's great. So those are the parent tiers. Not bad. Let's do the angels. Let's talk about the angels. We need to sort them out, and sort out where they fall in all of this. I guess we could go ahead and do the rebuild characters if we wanted to get them out of the way. Asuka in the rebuilds, I like. But Asuka in the rebuilds is not I guess we have Asuka in the manga, Asuka in the rebuilds, and Asuka in the anime. I guess those are the differences. She's the only character that gets multiple ones on this tier, which is curious to me. But Asuka in the rebuilds, I like her, but she just doesn't have enough to do. I feel like she gets the limelight stolen from her. Like, girl can't catch a break in the rebuilds. She gets the limelight stolen from her by Mari, stolen by Kaoru. Girl just cannot get herself a break. Now, in the anime and the manga, I love Asuka. Like, I love Asuka a lot. She's great. I love Asuka's character. She is not what I expected her to be. I honestly, from that cover art where she's kind of in a more demure position, I thought she'd be like more quiet and timid. Ha ha ha! And then the first time we meet her in episode 8, it's like, oh no, she's actually the polar opposite of that. Shinji is our timid, quiet one. It's like, okay. But yeah, I do love Asuka's character a lot, especially in the anime and the manga. She's so fleshed out. The whole thing with her mom, all of that. It's so crazy, her backstory and how it helps delve her character. It's just, I love Asuka. I feel like I've gushed enough about her and like the main trio all day, right? I love her character. As far as any characters that I dislike or can't complain, I dislike that one guy that trash talked Ritzko at episode 7 with Jet Alone. I disliked him. He was a douche lord. He can just shove off. Didn't like him at all. Not a big fan of Keel. Not a big fan of him. The council, ew. Ew. Look at them council members. No, they all look like goblins, and I don't like them. And it's just like, why are you even here? Nope, not a fan of them. If we're gonna do the 001 and the 00 and 02 units, the 00 unit, can't complain. The 02 unit, can't complain. Can't really complain about the EVA units. They don't really get as much time as the 01 unit does, so I can't really judge them based on that. We do have, when Toji is the angel down there. I guess he's one of the angels. We'll wait till we get to the angels to talk about that in more detail. The teacher, can't complain about the teacher. The teacher in the classroom, he's trying his best, you know? That teacher in that classroom, he's got one job. He's getting paid a low-rank salary in the apocalypse to teach these kids about their own history, and they don't appreciate anything he does. I can relate to that man. And so I can't complain about him. He doesn't get enough screen time. Where's his spin-off series? I want the sensei, the teacher from Shinji's classroom, and Jet Alone to form a dynamic duo and go out and solve the Tokyo 3's problems. Can we have that? All right. Pin, love. Pin gets all the love. Pin's such a good character. He doesn't get appreciated enough, right? I'm glad that Hikari, we're going to put him next to Hikari. Hikari took him under his wing and took him back to her home, and now he gets to hang out with Toji and her, right? That's what we need. I think in the rebuilds, he ends up with his own penguin kind, which is good. But I kind of wanted him to be like with Hikari and Toji. That would have been a nice little continuation if Pin was there. As far as the rebuild characters, I do like Toji's sister a lot. I like the screen time that she gets in the series. I like the kind of character. Why wasn't she in the ship? We had Hikari and Shinji in the ship together on the ship tier, but we didn't have Toji's sister and Shinji. Now, granted, that one, there's not as much age difference, but it still would have been kind of like, but we should have had that more than Hikari and Shinji, if I'm honest. The other characters, I can't complain about them because we just don't get a lot with them. The one girl with the pink hair, she was something else. But I almost put her in dislike because she looks like a Pokemon gym leader and she doesn't act like a lot of Neon Genesis characters. But by the end of it, I was like, okay, nah, I can't complain about her character. She's all right. Same with this one woman that worked on the bridge. Who was she? Where was she in the series? That's not Maya. That's somebody else. Where the hell was she the whole time? I'm like, what? Where was she at the series? Was she at the start? I don't know. I don't remember her. All right. So that leaves us with the angels and the heavy hitters, right? We're going to put the heavy hitters up here and the angels down below. Oh my. Oh my. We have many an angel that we are dealing with in this series that we need to talk about. So I guess we need to place... Oh, what about Jet Alone? Forgot Jet Alone's a major player. He gets to wait till the end. I guess as far as the angels go, there wasn't really an angel that I was like, ew with. I guess not. I didn't really care for the Magma Diver Egg Angel. It was kind of creepy. Like, no thank you. Don't really care for it. Ramiel is best girl, so she has to go up to the best spot. You all knew that was coming. Ramiel just jettisoned itself to the top. I would say also, if we're talking about angels that I really loved, I loved the Marble Angel. That one was cool. Its ability was not anything crazy, but its design is amazing, and it was one of my favorite episodes that it was in, so I did like that quite a bit. I liked, let me see here. I liked Sachiel. Sachiel was our OG angel. I liked Sachiel, the very first one. It looks like a Spirited Away character, but I liked it a lot. I liked Matriel quite a bit. That one was good. I liked that one. Some of the names I want to make sure I pronounce right. Sandolphin. Where's that bean at? Nah. I didn't really care for that one too much. I was like, no. The one that split in two, I can't complain about that one. It was interesting. I think I don't like its design very much, but I liked the episode that it was in, and the functionality that it could split in two was kind of cool. It reminded me of like a Lilo and Stitch character. Like it would have some kind of functionality the same way as it, right? Armisail. Armisail is the ring. I liked that one a lot. Armisail was cool. The fact that it became the noodles. I don't like, one of my phobias is like being a host for a parasite. No. So that the whole idea of it invading it keeps me from loving it. But I did like it an awful lot. And then Ariel was the one that did the Hallelujah. It goes up there under love. I liked Ariel a lot. It was a fun, it got lanced with the Lance of Longinus, but I liked its character an awful lot. As far as, I guess the microbial ones, they're not really on here, but I'm guessing it's this one. I can't complain about it. It's one of my favorite episodes, but its angel didn't really have much of a design, so it was like, it's okay. And then Zeruel is the one for episode 19. I can't complain about it, but I'm pretty neutral. Zeruel looks like a water bear. It was okay. It was part of a really good set of episodes, but angel-wise, it just came in and wrecked shit. Like, it didn't have much to do otherwise, and I was like, okay. And then, the second angel was Shamshell, right? With Shamshell, I can't complain about it. It tried. It does have the creepy little, like, underneath that was kind of, so I can't dislike it, but it was kind of creepy. No. And then, the one that is the eyes, that one... Oh, Gagiel is the one that I disliked. See, if I don't even get your name right, you're not going in the like category. Gagiel's down there. Yeah. Sahaquiel. Sahaquiel, I like a lot. Its design's pretty damn cool. I like Sahaquiel. The idea is trying to high-five the earth. That angel bolstered the really cool theory that it's just been trying to high-five the earth this entire time, and it just didn't know how strong it was, and we stopped it from connecting to the earth and trying to give it a high-five back. That theory was great, whichever person commented about that. And then the last angel is the one that Toji becomes. Sad Days. I liked that episode a lot, and the design of it was freaking badass. The idea that the Eva becomes the angel. But sad days. So, okay. So we are left with our heavy hitters. I will just say that I like Jet Alone. Jet Alone is too good to be in the can't complain category. He doesn't get enough screen time to be in the love, but he isn't a dislike or an ew. He definitely is in the like category. I like him an awful lot. We'll just leave it at that. Wish he could get a spinoff. So, all right, we're left with our heavy hitters here. So what do we do then? What do we do? I love Fuyu-chan. I love Fuyu-chan an awful lot. He's great. I connected with Fuyu-chan from episode 1. He was been one of my favorites. Is he the best? No, but he's a character. He's kind of like Gendo. I just love him. And the more we got with the series, I feel like the manga and stuff completes him even more. I would put Asuka above him and Gendo, but I actually put Asuka above Hikari and Pinpin. But I would put, I guess, Gendo and Fuyu above them. So if we're going to go that route, there we go. That's more in line. But I love Fuyu-chan so much. I love that y'all were on board with me calling him Fuyu-chan this entire series. Because I didn't want to say Fuyutsuki. I could say Fuyutsuki, but I was like, no, I don't want to. So I love that Fuyu-chan has become a thing. And his character's amazing. And I just, the depth that he gets and the story that he gets was more than I thought we would ever get with his character. And I was 1,000 times for it. So yeah. I liked Alba's character a lot. I can't say I loved Alba. Alba of the 3 was the one I wanted more with. I feel like of the 3, he gets the least to do. Alba is always, with the exception of the one time we see him in a laundromat, he doesn't really have much to do in the series other than be there at the command center. And he does have that conversation with Maya during End of Evangelion, which is really good. But that's like the most we get from him. And I feel like Anno had the least to do with him. So he was just like, it's Alba, which is a shame because he is such a good voice actor and he's like such a cool design. He was one that I feel like had potential and I wanted more of, and we just didn't get it. So there's that. I do love Hyuga. I do love Hyuga. I feel bad for Hyuga. I feel like we get a lot with him and Masato. I love all the stuff. Like, after Kaji dies, Hyuga tries to help Masato with things. I like the stuff that we get with him and the other characters. Same with Maya. I loved Maya. Maya was great. Maya, I feel like in all of the versions, even the rebuilds, she gets stuff to do. In the manga, we get the stuff with her and Ritsuko. I feel like there was stuff with all those characters that was pretty great. Obviously, I love Kaoru in all iterations. Kaoru is one of my favorites. I love Kaoru. And I love Shinji. Like, I feel like how you had to put Shinji and Kaoru together, but how could you not love them? They're some of my best. They're my top 5 for sure. Would be Kaoru and Shinji. In terms of, we'll rank the top ones. I do love Kaoru and Shinji an awful lot. They're pretty great, and I love Rei. I'm gonna put her down here with Asuka though. I honestly. Rei grew on me more in the rebuilds and the manga than she did in the anime. And if you had just showed me the anime, I probably would have said I liked Rei, but the manga and the rebuilds gave me a much deeper appreciation of her character than I would have gotten otherwise. So I have to put Rei up there in terms of that. The same with Ida. I'm going to put Ida between Fuyu and Hikari. I love Ida's character. I feel like Ida's character is also one of those that if you just had him from the anime, he would have been in the like category. But the manga and the rebuilds add so much more to his character that it makes me love him as a character even more. And I would put him next to Asuka, but I don't want to get in the way of Rei. So, and then same with Toji. I love Toji's character. Toji's going to go up there as well. Again, I feel like the rebuilds elevated Toji's character a lot. The manga, we don't get a lot extra with Toji, but what we do get is really good. And in the anime, Toji's character was just great. I do love in the manga, though, when Toji's character is really worried about going into the EVA and asking Shinji for advice. Like, that whole breakdown that he has elevated his character so much. So that leaves Mari and Ritsuko. Ritsuko, I love Ritsuko's character. I'm going to put her right here between Toji and Hikari. I love Ritsuko's character a lot. It's funny, she's not one of my top 5 characters, but I relate to her like the most. Make that what you will, right? But Ritsuko's character is so nuanced and layered, and I love that about her character. And I really, really enjoyed her character in the series and what she represented in terms of being she was a side character, but she had so much to do. And her vendetta against Gendo, her helping out, her trying to help the others in the end, but still keeping to her job. She's such a nuanced character. I really loved her. You know what? I can't put Ramiel up there without Ritsuko. So I'm going to put Ritsuko up there as well. Which I know a lot of people are going to be like, you put the 3 older characters up there with Shinji and Kaoru and Ramiel, but you didn't put Asuka and Rei up there. To answer your question, I'm in my 30s, so I will, of course, relate and like the elder characters more. If I had to break down which characters I liked the most, I would probably say I like Shinji the most out of all of them, and then Kaoru and Kaji, and then Masato, and then Ritsuko, and then best girl Ramiel. Ramiel should really be down here in the love, but because she's best girl, she gets an honorary spot as the 6th. She's like Kuroko. She's the phantom 6th favorite. But then it would go Asuka, then it would go Rei, then it would go Gendo and Fuyu, then it would go Ida and Toji and Hikari, Pin, then the Angels, then them. I would still say this would probably stay the same. I'd probably put Alba above Sachiel. Sorry, Sachiel. And then that would probably all stay the same. And then the rest of these don't matter. So, and that leaves Mari. And I know what y'all are thinking. You're going to be like, oh, Romania, you're going to put Mari in the dislike or the U category. No. Actually, we're not. I'm going to put her in the like. Next to Jet Alone. Right under Yui. Yep, that's where I'm going to put her. Because I did like Mari's character. That's the thing. I think a lot of people think that I hate Mari. I don't. I like Mari's character. She's just very frustrating. I can't say that I can't complain about her, because I can complain about her. Because she's not utilized, I think, to her fullest extent. I really wish that they either just made her older and had a backstory with Yui, and that would have been really cool, and just had her be like a mentor figure like Kaji to Shinji, or they should have just kept her for the end and made her be her own character with no ties to anybody. But she's a good character, and I love her interactions with Asuka. I love her interactions with Yui. The platonic interactions she has with Shinji are great too. So I can't complain about her character, and I like it. I just feel like there's not a wasted opportunity, but I feel like there could be so much more, and I just want more with it. So dang it. Show. But other than that, I do really like her. So yeah, I think I feel good about these. I really do. All right. So those are my tiers. My tiers and my tiers, y'all. What can we do? But yeah, so that leads us back to what we're doing from here. I do want to talk briefly about the rebuilds and the anime and the manga. So, and just kind of the pros and cons about each. So I would say that you have your pros and you have your cons with each, right? I would say, as I chuck this marker across the room, the anime, I think, has the biggest pro in that it is the longest series. I think it's the pro that it's the longest series. You get to spend the most time with the characters in it. It has the opportunity and the time to let it be atmospheric, let it be slow, and let it methodically take its time. That's one thing I loved about the series, was that it was the anime series, the rebuilds, well, I guess we'll put manga and the rebuilds here. One of the cons with the rebuilds is that there's not enough time. Even though you think to yourself, you're like, oh, there's 7 hours. That should be plenty of time. Movies have a specific format, and they have to fit that format narratively to work. And I feel like the biggest detriment to the rebuilds is that they had to cram everything into this 2-hour format, even the 2.5-hour format, and hit certain beats to make it work as a narrative, that it had to cut things out or condense things or rush things, where the anime had, 26, 23-minute episodes to fully delve into these characters, to delve into the themes, to let it be atmospheric, to let it have like a moment to breathe and sit and be silent, which is what Anna wanted. And I feel like that was its biggest benefit. Now, obviously, the cons with the anime series is that it's the most stylistic. I think that's the biggest detriment, is that the rebuilds are probably the most mainstream, I think, of them in the weirdest ways. They're the most general for general audiences. That can be to its detriment. That can also be over here as a con, depending on how you look at it. But I think that as far as reaching a mass audience, it has enough where it can pull a mass audience in and still be appreciative to fans of the series. Whereas the anime is the most niche. Like, it's the most stylistic, especially the last 5 episodes. They get so stylistic and abstract and surreal that I feel like unless you are on board with that theme and that tone, it's going to make you kind of pull back. Whereas the rebuilds, you might be like, well, this is kind of confusing, but I kind of get what's happening. It doesn't make you pull back. Not nearly as much as I think the anime series does. Now, for me, the style is a pro. So for me, it can be viewed as either way. It's kind of like the rebuilds. You can look at it either way, as a pro or as a con. Apples and oranges, depends on your preference, right? But definitely functions both ways, right? I think also a con too is that the time of it being from the 90s and the availability of it is to somewhat of its disadvantages. Because again, if I didn't have Anthony's files to watch over the series, I would have missed the director's cut versions. I would have missed Fly Me to the Moon. So I think that it is a con. Unless you have accessibility handy, it can be hard to fully appreciate this to its fullest extent. Whereas with the rebuilds, they're recent. You can get them in their full Blu-ray glory. And with here, you got to kind of dig around, right, to find exactly what it is. So there's that. And the manga series, I feel like the manga is, we've talked about this in the comments. I think Christopher Peterson's been the one that really hit it on the head. The idea that it is the most mainstream of the three. Like the rebuilds have the general audience factor in its favor. I feel like the manga is the most mainstream and concrete. I feel like the manga is the most mainstream and concrete. Like it's, Christopher Peterson talked about how it can be a con because it's not as ambiguous. It does take some leaps and make some things be like, no, this is what this means. And if you like the rebuilds and the anime for being more abstract and ambiguous, then you may not like the manga as much because it's not as ambiguous. Because you get inside the characters' heads, because things are explained in black and white on paper, and it's not through a film medium, it is more concrete in the themes. And if that's not your thing, then you may not like it as much, right? And I feel like it changes character the most. And again, that can be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it. What I love about this is that all three of these are technically considered canon, but they're not sequences of one another. They're kind of separated from one another. And so you kind of, as the audience, get to pick, okay, well, which version of Neon Genesis do I like the best? And there's not a wrong answer, which is kind of fun, right? I'll also say that the pros for the rebuilds are not only the animation, but also the technology does benefit it. It does make it gorgeous. It makes it being able to do things through animation that the original series could not. I love that. The cons is that I think the rebuilds have the weakest writing. For whatever reason, I think of all three, the writing is the weakest with the rebuilds. I think it's the most fanficky of all of them. Even with the manga, I feel like the manga is consistent enough that even though the tone is different, the characters are different, the tone is consistent enough where it doesn't read off so much as fanfic, just like an alternate version of the anime. Whereas the rebuild, sometimes it's close to the anime, sometimes it's far off, sometimes characters do things that you're like, that character would not have done that, and it's not consistent. So I think the writing is the weakest with the rebuilds, but it visually at times looks the best. But my favorite is still the anime. I think the anime is the all-rounder. To me, the anime is the best all around. It's like the perfect balance of surreal with great storytelling, with consistency, with surprises, with good voice acting, with good animation for the time that it was created in. And it still holds up now. There's a lot of the animation that holds up now. I personally love the late 80s, early 90s grungy animation. Like a lot of things, I will give the rebuilds credit. The rebuilds do not do what a lot of modern animation does, and it makes things look totally smooth and like metallic and kind of void of detail. It looks too minimalist, and it looks like there's just not the effort. Like this felt like a Studio Ghibli film. This felt like there was like 5,000 animators pouring their heart and sweat and tears into a leaf petal to make it look great. Like that is something I would praise the rebuilds for, was that they didn't go the cheap route. They made sure that the films looked amazing and had so much detail and visually were stunning. So that's why I would put the rebuilds. It's hard because Sadamoto's artwork is amazing. So I was like, So I feel like with all three, a big pro with all three is the art. The art of all three is phenomenal. With Sadamoto and the manga, it was him and a handful of assistants creating these gorgeous, beautiful double spreads that I could stare at for hours. With the rebuilds, it's creating these movies that I could just like have an eyegasm with over and over again. And with the anime, it's the OG, but still animation that holds up and stands the test of time and just looks wonderful despite being 30 years old. So again, I feel like when I can look at a series and gush about it in all of its iterations over the past 30 years, it's a testament to just how good it is. And so yeah. If you don't know what order to view in. I will say this. Having seen all 3 versions, I would start with the anime, watch the anime first, get that ground level experience from the OG, do it that way. And then I would say after that, my next suggestion would be, people told me to read the manga before watching the rebuilds. I'd say you could do it either way. It does make sense to read the manga before watching the rebuilds, but I think that it can be a treat to watch the rebuilds and then go back and read the manga and see moments that maybe inspired the rebuilds. So it's kind of pick your poison, whatever route you want to take. But I think either one is fine. But I just love all the iterations of this series a whole lot. And like I've said, I don't feel like this is the ending of Neon Genesis for me. I feel like there's still things I want to go back to and watch. So for example, the Shinji Ikari Raising Project, that's like a whole manga series. It's like 14 volumes. One day, way down the road, I would like to read that and react to it. I think it would be fun. There is the video game, this Girlfriend of Steel 2 that I couldn't get to work. One day I'd love to go back and try that again, way down the road when I get a chance to. There's other works of Anno's like Shin Godzilla. I would love to do like a commentary for it or something, maybe just for Patreon, do like a Patreon commentary for that film because I've heard it's really good. And now that I know Anno's involved with it, I'm like, okay, cool. There's documentaries and stuff that I'd like to watch and react to. There's lots of Neon Genesis content that maybe when I'm feeling the need to get some Neon Genesis love, I'll go back and just randomly react to something and post it on the channel and on Patreon and just be like, here you go. I just felt like it. Why not? I feel like that could be a lot of fun. And then there's other works like Revolutionary Girl Utina. I want to watch that eventually and get to see that. That would be fun because it's been talked about as well. And there's other series that are connected to Neon Genesis that I would like to get to as well if time allots. So as far as what series is replacing this one, I had a video come out. Actually, it's already been out on Patreon, but on YouTube it will have come out the day prior to this series, to this episode video airing. So if you want to go back, my dog picked the series that replaced Neon Genesis. So you can go back and look at that if you want to see. But I'm actually really excited, and I feel like it's the stars aligning that the series that replaces this one, it does have ties to Sadamoto. I found out as I was watching the first episode of it that the character designer for the series is Yoshiyuki Sadamoto. Didn't know that when the Huckleberry picked the winner. I had no clue. And as I was watching, I was like, wait a minute, that's Neon Genesis. That's the creator of the manga. And so it is. So it all works out that the series that is replacing this one has the same character designer as the manga for Neon Genesis. So threading together, connecting together, right? Right? I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought that was really cool. So yeah. But y'all, I hope you have stuck around for this 2.5 hour dissection of my thoughts on Neon Genesis as a whole. It's been a lot of fun. I'm probably going to make this like a premiere so that there can be a chat on the screen as we go through it. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun going through this series and watching it. I decided to do this instead of a live stream because my internet sucks. First of all, and because I could record this. But I am going to make it a premiere so that we can all talk in the chat about it as we go through, because I'm off on break right now, so I can actually be in the chat to watch with y'all, which will be a lot of fun. So we'll see. But I hope you all enjoyed my dive into Neon Genesis Evangelion, and thank you all so much for the support with the reactions and the discussions and my long-winded ramblings for the movies, because those were a testament of how long can I talk about a series. So hopefully I didn't bore you all too much. But there'll be more Neon Genesis in the future way down the road. But for now, we're going to take a page from Anno's book, step back, move on to a new series, and have fun with it. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, I look forward to seeing more reactions with you all in 2023. Bye.